Girlfriend, F31, is trying to convince me, M30, into a relationship with her friend, F29, we had a blow-up this weekend over it. Should I apologize or call it quits? My GF is bi and primarily dated women before we met. We're getting serious and talking about getting married, we've dated for over 2 years. But recently she's been making a lot of polygamous jokes, and I'm not really into it. She has this friend that I get the feeling is just waiting for a hiccup in our relationship to make a move. She's bi and openly makes jokes about being sexual with my girlfriend. I've shared that I don't like it before, but she jokes that I'm gay for not being into it. Maybe I could be into an experience, but honestly, this person just makes me uncomfortable too often. Besides that, she's just not my type sexually. We had a long conversation around COVID about she wanted to be referred to he/him, so I did. 2 years later he wanted to be referred to as they/them, so I did. Recently she's circled around back to she/her, which is fine. But the whole time she dresses like a Kyle. For those of you that are unfamiliar, a Kyle is a kind of guy that wears Fox apparel, washes down vape with a Monster Energy drink. She would be attractive, but it's like her idea of masculinity was formed from high school douchebags, not 30-year-old men. Anyway, Saturday we got into a fight because we had some friends over. Kyle was the last one to leave, we'd all been drinking. I was in the kitchen putting away some food and I see this asshole put his hand on my GF's ass. I let her know right away, that's the line, you crossed it, stop. My girlfriend gives her classic, that's just how girls joke, and goes. They did this silly little dance twirl thing that ended my GF on Kyle's lap. I'd had enough and stepped into the room. My GF doubled down and said that most guys would be dying to fool around with 2 women. I was blunt and said that I was uninterested in sharing her with anyone. Kyle then said something like, maybe I could strap one on, maybe you'd prefer a man. I was drunk, this asshole had his hand on my GF's waist, and my GF on her lap. I lost it. I don't remember what I said exactly, something like, if you were a man you would have been kicked out or knocked out already. This struck some kind of chord with her, she postured up like a gorilla and it was a 3-way shouting match. I don't know what was said exactly, but it ended with Kyle loudly proclaiming that she had to leave before someone got hurt. Here's the problem, my GF somehow thinks that I need to apologize. Me, for threatening a person who came into my home, grabbed my girlfriend's ass, sat her down on her lap, and insinuated that I'd like to be ass-fucked by a man. She says that I needlessly introduced violence, and forced Kyle to drive home intoxicated. I honestly can't fathom an apology, and I honestly don't care to have Kyle in our life anymore. I'm not typically the one to die on a hill, but I feel like anything short of digging my heels in is unacceptable. I told her I'd think about it, she's staying at a cousin's house for a few days. If it was just one night, I'd get it, but it's been several. Saturday was just the tipping point, but honestly, she acts like this something she can get out of her system. I think she wants to be bi, and I think a lot of her friends are doing the poly thing. It's just not for me. I want one partnership with one person. All of her poly friends are in relationships but they come and go, there's nothing concrete there. She claims to want kids, she claims to want commitment. But her actions say otherwise. TLDR, my GF has a girlfriend that presents very masculine that she makes sex jokes with. Saturday she propositioned a 3-way, I got upset and her friend basically called me gay. So we almost fought, now my GF wants me to apologize. I don't want to apologize, I can maybe get over it if we agree not to see Kyle again. I don't want to scrub another long-term relationship, but is this even something you can work past? Edit, she's claims she's coming by to pick up things for work. I feel like a conversation is unavoidable. I've taken what I want out of the competent suggestions here and applied the relevant context into the talking points I want to hit. I may update tomorrow or whenever I feel better. I don't know if this post was a good or bad idea. I won't reply until I feel like it. I have a big band-aid to rip off. Comments. Commenter 1. I've shared that I don't like it before, but she jokes that I'm gay for not being into it. This is shaming tactics. If you know you're not into something and you've already told the PPL around you, yet they still try to get into it, you need to remove them from your life because now they're being disrespectful to your boundaries. Reply, that's what I'm saying, but they've been friends longer than I've been together with her. She writes it off as, that's just a long-running joke. Replying to a deleted comment. Reply, what blows, is that in almost every other way. We click. Similar interest, similar political beliefs, similar morals, we're both career-driven and stable. Our sex life is also very good, we both pay attention to each other's needs. But her poly friends have her believing she can be a stay-at-home mom and sleep around when she feels like it. Commenter 2, let's be real here dude. She consistently, repeatedly, does not show any regard for your thoughts, feelings, or boundaries. When prompted, she has done nothing to change an act that she is aware bothers you. If anything, she has increased her participation in that poor behavior. She doesn't seem to care about you when it counts. Ergo, she is far, far, far from 95%. I hope you find someone who does give a rip about you and your feelings. Because she does not. And with a friend like this Kyle person, without significant foundational change, I don't see how you can trust her again. Because it's clear that she doesn't see a problem with how her friends treat her. And she doesn't care if you do. Good luck. Update. I'm just going to go off the bullet points of the conversation, because I'm over it. She arrived yesterday with a peace offering from our favorite ice cream shop and wanted to set things aside so we could settle down and catch up on the new episode of Hot D. I told her that I was uncomfortable just eating ice cream and watching TV with the elephant in the room. I think that she could sense that I was in a different mood than she expected. The talking points were as follows. I mentioned that I felt no need to apologize, and referenced that Kyle had never apologized for disrespecting me in my home on other occasions. And that the average person would display hostility towards someone who acted the way Kyle acted. Her response was that she felt it was a first-time offense and that she had no idea I felt so strongly towards the jokes in the past. I cut her off and told her that she wasn't listening to me if that was how she felt. She stated that I introduced violence, and that's what I should be apologizing for. I stood my ground and said that any person who touches another person's spouse sexually in front of them, without their consent, should understand that they're going to provoke a reaction. Given that I actually have boxing experience, I showed restraint. She made this weird point that, because I have boxing experience, I should somehow be more careful about provoking violent situations because I know that a fight between Kyle and I is a mismatch. Which I easily countered with the fact that I didn't provoke the situation, Kyle did, and my girlfriend not seeing that is a problem. She mentioned that it was reckless for me to kick out an intoxicated guest. I easily retorted with, Uber fucking exists. There's no reason to drunk drive in 2024. If she dies in DUI, it's because she was too stupid to pay the $15 to get a ride there. I'd looked it up yesterday. Her stupidity is not my responsibility. I asked her if she'd slept with Kyle in the past. She said no. Maybe I'm biased and not to be trusted, but I believe her. I told her that it makes me super uncomfortable that she keeps pressuring me into having sex with someone I'm unattached to. This is compounded by the fact that I've had to jump through hoops to make sure that Kyle was comfortable with her sexuality over the years. This is the curveball I didn't expect. She claimed that Kyle actually likes me for that reason. That Kyle shows her affection like a schoolyard idiot. That Kyle feels comfortable with the both of us, my girlfriend feels comfortable with Kyle, so their intention was to gauge my comfort level and proceed. Obviously I brought up that I wasn't sexually attracted to Kyle in any way. And that she hadn't helped her cause by treating me the way she has that night or the nights prior. My girlfriend reinstated that she was unaware that my feelings before were as strong as they are because I didn't display emphasis or something. Essentially she thought I shrugged it off in good humor. I stated that I'd like to start talking about what a breakup looks like. She was obviously so far from the idea that we were talking about a breakup. Immediate waterworks, immediately incoherent, and apologetic. I brought up that I'm unsure if she actually believes in our shared goals of marriage, parenthood, and monogamy. She was in hysterics but essentially couldn't believe that I would come to that conclusion based off one night. I reminded her that it was a pattern of behavior. Not one night. She then backpedaled and said that her polygamous behavior was a part of her life she wanted to share with me before we were married. And she believed that she was presenting it in a way that she thought would be appealing to me. I think she thinks I have porn brain, but I reminded her that I'd showed a lack of interest before, and that in my opinion this wasn't the first time she'd pitched fooling around with Kyle. She circled back to insisting the other times were jokes. I told her that if she believes that, she either wasn't listening to me or not taking me seriously. I brought up that it wasn't okay that they called me gay because I didn't want to engage with their ideas. I brought up the hypocritical nature of her friend group being so inclusive. But making fun of my sexuality when I didn't want to participate in their games. She was hyper-apologetic, and didn't understand that it was a problem until I framed it in, had the shoe been on the other foot, it would never be acceptable. TL, well, there's the talking points. GF went to work, I said I did too but actually cashed in on a sick day to research changed locks and breakup logistics. We ended by agreeing to talk more tonight. But I don't know how I trust what she says. I'm worried that our past relationship will poison my judgment, so I'm trying to get as much ready to rip off the band-aid as I can. She sits firmly in the camp of not wanting to break up, which means she leaves it to me to do it. What do you all think? Stay or nay? Comments. Commenter 1. Run. She is the kind that only regrets her actions when the consequences hit her in the face. Commenter 2. She is the type of girl that is gaslighting OP, and since he doesn't want a poly relationship, she will start cheating on him if she hasn't already. She seems like the type of girl that doesn't see having sex with other girls while in a relationship as cheating just because the sex was with another woman and not a guy. OP should get tested for STDs ASAP and not waste more years of his life with someone that doesn't respect his boundaries. Commenter 3. The old, but it's a girl, it doesn't count routine that so many bisexual women have been trying to peddle for decades. It was bullshit then and it's bullshit now. Cheating is what it is, regardless of gender. Update. I am 30, broke up with my girlfriend, F31. And now she won't move out till the school year starts. Do any of you have experience evicting MX? It's been a rough couple of weeks, but I did it. I broke up with my girlfriend after she tried to throuple me with her friend. Initially she was happy to move into her cousin's house. But there's been some drama because the story she tells her friends and family leaves out key components. Some of them reached out angrily to me, when I set them straight they then gave my ex an earful. Now she's mad at me for disclosing sensitive information. I'm guessing that her cousin isn't allowing her back because she doesn't agree with her decisions. I don't know for sure because we're not in contact. I only know what my ex says and she's unreliable. She's become hot and cold, either bitter and cold shoulder, or bringing up reconciling and coming on to me. I've made a point to resist her advances. She's been trying to guilt me. A few months ago she made the decision to go after her master's degree. She was supposed to be starting very soon, but now I've compromised her living situation. She's upset that rent everywhere else is double what she contributes here. I tell her that it's no longer my problem. I guess she has a subscription service that has delivered here. She produced that last night when I told her I needed her completely out by the 15th. Now she's saying she has a right to be here. Does anyone have experience evicting an ex? DR broke up with my ex. She keeps trying to patch things up, but when I gave her a date to leave she's now initiated a squat. Update. A woman, F34, that I, M31, have been seeing has an F. Can a relationship realistically be salvaged? I got out of a nasty breakup a little under a year ago. I avoided the dating sites but ended up meeting this lady through mutual friends. She ticks off all the boxes, she seems very kind, she's stable financially and emotionally. She's very funny, we have great chemistry, and the physical relationship is great. But, like 15% of her income comes from a small of account. Which is fine, her content supposedly is just photos of her, solo work. Now she's talking about becoming exclusive. I'm only realistically talking to one other person. And that relationship hasn't become physical yet. But I'm ready for marriage, kids, I want to settle down. And in my opinion, a woman with an Ev isn't looking to settle down. She disagrees. We got into a big argument over it. What she heard was, "You're not wife material." Which isn't entirely true, she totally is, without the Ev account. She has a good job, her account is small enough that it wouldn't affect her finances too much. Especially if we moved in sometime within the next 2 years. I made my boundary clear, but she keeps calling, texting, insisting that I'm the only guy that she's seeing. I know Ev isn't prostitution, but it is sex work. Plus, her account brings in less than a part-time job at McDonald's. I feel like it's not unreasonable to have a problem with strangers looking at sexual photos of a person you want to pursue a serious relationship with. Have any of you made a relationship work with a sex worker? TLDR, a woman I'm seeing wants to be exclusive. But she has an Ev and I don't understand how to pursue a serious relationship with a sex worker. Can you actually make a marriage work with someone like this? Comments. Commenter 1. You said that in your opinion a woman with an Ev isn't ready to settle down. She's telling you that your opinion about her readiness is incorrect. Since you are still pushing back, that particular opinion is no longer the issue. Clearly there is some other reason you have a problem with it, so take some time to identify it and accept that you may not be compatible. Commenter 2. Just break up. I don't see anything wrong with a married person having an Ev account, but you do. So you're not compatible. Your solution is to hold the wife material thing over her head, which is rather a 20ish thing to do. So break up. Stories number 2. Husband is having an affair. I feel so stupid. My husband is having an affair with a woman from our rowing club. Her husband reached out to me. He is going to divorce her and he wanted me to know before he files instead of me finding out from gossip or people talking. He showed me proof of their affair. I've been married to him for 6 years, with him for 9 years, and we have a 3-year-old. My cousin is a divorce lawyer and said one of the other lawyers she works with will represent me for a reduced price. I never thought I would be getting divorced. I just feel so stupid because I had no idea and thought everything between us was great. Edit. I do appreciate the other woman's husband telling me, but there is an age difference of 15 years, he has a child only 9 years younger than me, and he is not my type. We won't be dating or getting married, and some of the posts and DMs I am getting have suggested. Some of comments. Top commenter. the guy was very empathetic in telling you what was going on. I'm so sorry you're going through that, but it's better that you found out than live more years of deception. Later on you will find someone who respects and values you. Reply, he said he is divorcing her on adultery grounds since if he can prove it he won't have to pay alimony. With all that being public he didn't think it was right that I find out that way. I almost feel worse for him because they have been married for 20 years and have an adult son. I can't imagine how it feels to lose such a long marriage. Commenter, I think she, OOP, should file on the grounds of adultery as well. Actions have consequences and it's time the STBXH found that out. Reply, I'll talk to my lawyer about this, but my cousin told me there is no advantage to me doing this since alimony isn't a concern in our case. Adultery won't affect the settlement or custody, it's just about the alimony. Obviously though I will follow my lawyer's advice. Commenter, I don't know. I think that bringing the adultery into the divorce case may help you with the custody and child support case. Reply, child support is based on income alone and adultery does not factor into custody. I will be discussing this with my lawyer, but my cousin who has over 10 years experience as a divorce lawyer told me it only matters regarding adultery and the court doesn't consider it regarding custody, child support, or in the settlement. Commenter, what did he say when you confronted him? Reply, I haven't yet. I am still getting everything in order and getting ready to meet the lawyer. Commenter, so, did this all happen today? Reply, the husband of the other woman told me 9 days ago. Commenter, has he confronted his wife yet? I admire your ability to refrain from saying anything for so long. Reply, he said he isn't saying anything to his wife about him knowing, he is preparing to file for divorce. I only haven't said anything because I want to make sure everything is in order for me and our child. If we didn't have a child I would confront my husband now. Commenter, wow. So, is your husband in your home during this time? I'm wondering if the other husband said something to his wife that he told you. Reply, he hasn't told his wife yet. He told me he is officially filing in 2 more weeks and isn't going to let her know ahead of time. OOP replies to the many people who say she should go on a date with the other woman's husband. I am thankful he told me. However, I'm not in the mindset to start a new relationship. He has a child only 9 years younger than me, the age gap is too large and he is not my type at all. There is no chance of me dating or marrying him. Update, it's official, I'm divorced. To summarize what happened, my ex-husband had an affair with a woman from our rowing club. I had been married for 6 years and we had a 3-year-old. We were more acquainted with the other woman's son at first because he was only 9 years younger than us and we often saw him around the club. I didn't find out myself. The other woman's husband found out and he was the one who told me about the affair. He said he didn't want me to find out from gossip at the rowing club. I'll be thankful forever that he told me first. Everything was bad enough without me having to find out through gossip. The other woman had been married for 20 years, her husband was a doctor and apparently she didn't have a job. Since her husband had proof of the affair it meant he wouldn't have to pay her any alimony. I found out that in our state if there's proof you cheated you legally can't be awarded alimony. That's why the other woman's husband was so focused on getting proof of the affair. He moved to another state after his divorce. In my case it didn't matter. My ex-husband and I both worked and earned the same amount so there would be no alimony for either of us. The affair wouldn't change that our assets and custody of our child would be split 50-50 between us. In 12 days I'm moving into a new place and starting a new job. My ex-husband and the other woman said they wanted to get married but they fell apart and aren't together. He tried to change my mind about the divorce. We only talk about our child now. I honestly still can't believe this happened to me sometimes. Edit. There is an age difference of 15 years between myself and other woman's husband and he has a son who is only 9 years younger than I am. He lives in a different state now and is not even my type. Besides the age difference, I'm not looking to get married right now and I won't be dating or getting married to him like some of the comments and DMs I am getting are suggesting. Editor's note, figured questions would come up, so here's a link to a website detailing what states have specific alimony clauses, link. I got you fam, even though now my ads may be weird for a while. Stories number 3. Aita for not letting my parents to be involved grandparents because they chose my sister's friend over me. I'm 25F. Pregnant with my first child and only a few weeks ago my estranged parents found out about my pregnancy from someone I know back in my hometown. They reached out so excited to find out they were going to be grandparents and wanting to be involved but I ignored them and continued ignoring them until 2 days ago when I replied one time and made it clear they will never know my child or be in our lives and that I wanted them to stop contacting me. This was all via email BTW. Let me get into some background. I have an older sister Sam, 28, and she had a best friend Luna. Sam and Luna met in pre-K and became fast friends. Luna was over at our house all the time and eventually she started saying really awful things to me and bullying me. She called me names, mocked me whenever I asked if I could spend time with her and Sam, threw stuff at me when she'd see me, and even made a game out of spitting at me and seeing how many times she could hit me. My parents knew and they did nothing, but once I was 7 they sat me down and told me that Luna had a bad time at home and she was mean, but she needed us and I needed to understand. And how Luna was so important to Sam and she would grow up into a better person if we didn't abandon her. She used to come along to extended family parties and dinners. I remember one time Mom's side was all meeting up, and because my parents didn't say Luna was coming we were a chair short for a bit. Luna took the chair and then said there was no room for me at the table, just like there wasn't room for me anywhere and I should cry in a corner somewhere. Mom's family were horrified and I started to cry. I was like 9 by then. My grandparents ended up leaving the table and getting one for just the 3 of us, and they spoiled me while they refused to pay for a single thing Luna consumed. They asked me what was going on too and I told them everything. Afterward my parents got so much shit from Mom's side of the family, and my mom's parents contacted my dad's parents and they were shamed by both sides. When they had enough of that, my parents told Sam that Luna needed to come over less or she needed to be nicer. They sorta stuck to that for a while. My grandparents checked in on me weekly to see if my parents were letting that spoiled little madam into the house to abuse me, and I think that was the deterrent for my parents. But then when I was 12 my parents let Luna move in with us. They said her home situation was worse and she was going to apologize and we were going to make sure she felt wanted and welcome with us. I got a sorry, I guess, from her, but I could hear her making fun of me to Sam whenever me and my parents weren't around. She'd laugh about how I looked betrayed when my parents told me she was moving in. She found it hilarious. I think you can see whose side Sam was always on. I lived like that for a little over a year before it got to be too much and I told my grandparents Luna was living with us. They went ballistic on my parents, and after weeks or months of fighting about it my grandparents insisted I was going to move in with them. My parents protested against it, but my grandparents said they couldn't be trusted to take care of me. My parents wouldn't kick out Luna for me, so yeah. I lived with my grandparents the rest of that time and I actually live in the same neighborhood as them with my partner now. I actually had zero contact once I moved in with my grandparents. These emails were the first contact in more than a decade. My parents keep replying to that one email. I got like 4 within a few minutes about an hour after I sent it, and they're telling me I'm taking this too far and they said Luna isn't even in the picture anymore. Stories number 4. My friend invited my ex-husband to her wedding so I had to leave. I, 37F, left my husband, Darren, 37M, 2 years ago, when our eldest daughter, now 19, came out and he physically attacked her for it. We have 4 children and I have sole custody over the 3 who young enough to be covered by custody agreements, which Darren has tried to fight me over for the past 2 years, but when you have a criminal record for beating up one child, the courts are unlikely to give you custody of the others. Darren and I were in the same friendship group since primary school, but my friends told me they had all cut contact with him. I went to my friend, Rachel's, 37F, wedding, this weekend when I spotted him at the ceremony. Because it's a wedding and an important day for my friend, I chose not to acknowledge his existence. It was a big wedding anyway, so I thought I could just avoid him and have a conversation with Rachel about his presence at a later date because she deserved to enjoy her day. However, when I was looking at the seating plan for the reception, I saw both of our names, one after the other. Rachel had put our group, including Darren, on the same table. My 2 other friends from this group convinced me to take my seat because we hardly get to see each other anymore, promising that they had no idea why Darren was invited and vowing to make him regret being born if any drama started. Darren sat next to me, greeted me with a "Hey, babe," as if we were still together, and I could not cope with being in his presence. All I could think about was desperately trying to restrain him while my second eldest called the police. I downed my glass of Prosecco and walked to my hotel. Yesterday, I got a message from Rachel saying that her mom asked her to invite Darren and Rachel said yes because her parents were paying for most of the wedding. Rachel's mom is Darren's godmother. I asked her about the seating plan and, again, she said that was her mom's doing because she was adamant that there was a potential for us to get back together. She apologized for not telling me, saying that she thought I wouldn't go if I knew, which is true, I wouldn't have come. I have not replied to that message and I don't plan to. As much as I don't want to give up on an over 3-decade-long friendship, I can't get past this. Notable comments. Commenter 1. Fuck your friend and her lousy excuses. She blindsided you without any regard to your feelings and the fact that he assaulted your child. Commenter 2. I don't care what Rachel's excuses are. She's the bride. She makes the final call no matter what her mother wants. I would think most vendors want some kind of signature from the couple to approve things. Rachel's a coward that would rather place blame for her decisions on someone outside your friendship group. I would never do this, but I can see why her mom invited your ex to the wedding since he's her godson, but Rachel should have told you beforehand and she never should have assigned you to the same table. Also, I don't trust everyone didn't know he was going to be there prior to the wedding. I feel like your friends used the wedding as a way for your friendship group to come together again for their convenience, which if true is so messed up. I'm so petty anytime someone mentions, why can't you just be around him? I would shove photos of both of your injuries in their face and say, you want this person in our lives. Screw that and screw you. Commenter 3. Rachel is an asshole. There are some things you push back on and this is one of them. She absolutely should have let you know. You deserve better friends. Ditch the bitch. Commenter 4. You are a badass and I hope to be the type of mom you are. You did the right thing. You respected your friend's wedding. Your friend and her mother disrespected you and your kid. Also, the suggestion you would rekindle something with the asshole who assaulted your kid for coming out makes me seriously concerned about being around these people at all. If your friend was your friend, she would have said no, that isn't gonna happen, he's a piece of shit. End of story. Commenter 5. Sorry you had such a shit experience. Sorry your kid's coming out was traumatic, instead of the celebration it should been. But, you're amazing and I hope you are surrounded by people who see and support how great you are. Commenter 6. I assume, since Rachel is from the friend group, that she knows what he did. I also assume, because you've been friends for 30 years, that she knows your children. If these two facts are true, then she needed to protect you, this was unforgivable. Reply. Yeah, my children call her their auntie and she and her husband helped me pack up our lives after what he did. I still can't wrap my head around why she didn't even warn me. Commenter 7. I'm afraid you need to tell your children about this, so they know, auntie can't be trusted. About oldest daughter, we had a conversation with her when I got home and she has blocked Rachel and her husband. Bowing to family pressure is one thing, not giving you a heads up proves she was never a real friend to begin with. Update. Before I get into the update, I noticed a couple of comments pointing out my mistake with sole custody and I'm just grateful that I have a solicitor for custody stuff, because if I make a mistake doesn't come up with a wiggly red line under it, I will not pick up on it. Anyway, I did not reply to Rachel and just blocked her, but her husband called me yesterday. He apologized but then went on about how hard this is for Rachel and how she feels that the day was tainted for her. I told him that how she sees her day is not my responsibility and I ended up blocking him as well. I talked to one of the members of the friend group and he apologized for convincing me to even sit down at the table. He said he thought more about him wanting to have the group back together than how it would affect me. He then told me about how Darren told Rachel's family members who asked where I was that me seeing him reminded him too much about our son who died 2 years ago and I had to leave. He was referring to my daughter, who is a, very much alive, trans woman. Apparently no one in the group attempted to correct him, so I have just removed myself from our group chats and am going to try to make better friends. Also, thank you to the people who wished my daughter well. She wanted me to say that she really appreciates it and she is starting to thrive, despite the mental scarring and tinnitus her sorry excuse for a father gave her. I could not be prouder of how far she has come in her journey and, in September, she will be the first person in my family to go to university. She is taking a page out of the Petty Queen's book and getting her revenge with a life well lived. Notable comments. Commenter 1. You did not make the stink at the wedding, you just left. They, collectively, are the ones who made a stink. Upgrading your friend group, either in total or selectively, sounds like an excellent idea. Commenter 2. Her wedding memory will be haunted by guilt. Good. Suits her right. Stories number 5. My mother kicked me out to teach me a lesson. I ended up marrying wealthy instead. As soon as I turned 18, my mother kicked me out on the streets. She decided that it was time for me to experience the realities of the world and to struggle like she did. So, there I was, homeless with 400 quid to my name, trying to figure it out. I couch surfed at some friends until I got a job at a fast food outlet and eventually rented a room in a shared flat. I was always very academic at school, so I decided to apply for university and take out a loan. Strangely, I kept in touch with my mum and she used to get angry whenever I told her about my plans for further study. I will never forget the time she emailed me at 3 a.m. to tell me that the open day I was going to was useless because university is full of rich people who I will never fit in with. Eventually, I stopped telling her about my life. Long story short, I ended up going to university, where I met my now partner. At the time, I didn't know they were wealthy because they didn't act snobbish or entitled. They lived a pretty average university life, sharing a house with friends and shopping at discounted supermarkets. It was not until years later, when we were about to be married, I found out about the wealth they are acquiring. I never told my mother about my marriage or their wealth. She passed away a couple of years ago thinking I was some brainwashed liberal with a useless degree. She also had a degree and worked in finance BTW. What she never realized was that by going to university, I enabled myself to build a life worth living. And for those wondering, no, I'm not some stay-at-home wife drinking matcha and doing Pilates. I now have a PhD and work full-time at my country's public health department. I'm so grateful for the life I built myself. I love my partner and we have a wonderful relationship. Stories number 6. Aita for refusing to go to confession so I can take communion in my brother's wedding. I, 31F, have 3 siblings, 40M, 38F, 27M, and we have a good relationship despite the age gaps between some of us. My older siblings are both married and so am I. The wedding in question is my younger brother's. My younger brother, Luke, is engaged to his GF of a year, Emma, 28F. She is nice I guess, but we have never really clicked and are just polite to each other. Something important is that we are all Catholic, but not really hardcore ones, and some of us are even lapsed. I do believe this whole situation started just when I met her for the first time. I look younger than Luke and it has always been a sibling joke that I am truly the baby of the family. Most people that meet us assume he is older than me, but nobody has had issues with it until Emma. The day I met her she kind of scoffed when I said I was happy the baby had a proper girlfriend. She has this weird thing about being the eldest in her family and refused to believe I was older than her until I showed her my ID. She has been hot and cold with me since then, often infantilizing me or trying to have a sort of boss attitude. I just let her be and usually ignore her since I have no time to try and beg for her friendship, so I am just polite and civil, always include her when planning stuff but don't really make an effort. The family knows about it but we just shrugged it to different personalities. Then the wedding planning started. Emma decided I could not be in the wedding party since I was not married in a church, fine by me. Then she requested that immediate family submits their dress planning so she could check it fits the wedding dress code, fine whatever. You see where this is going I hope. You'll see I have not gone to confession or have communion in more than a decade. If I go to a mass for whatever reason I am respectful and simply sit or stay standing during the rites I don't participate on. Well, this is not good enough for her and she says I need to take communion during their wedding. I said no and she has not taken it well. For the most part one avoid her as I said before, but this time I wasn't gonna say yes or risk an issue. I told her for taking communion one needs to go to confession and I didn't want to. She said all immediate family is doing it and it will look bad if I don't. I told her sure fine, then I'll just go have communion in front of everybody but won't do confession. She said if this was gonna be my attitude I was uninvited from the wedding because I clearly wanted to ruin the day for her. I turned to my brother and told him thanks, gave him a thumbs up and went home. My family understand my reasoning and said they respect everybody's choices, but I shouldn't have said what I said. I told them I really don't want to go to the wedding anymore and I don't owe Emma explanations on my life. I only called my grandma because she heard what happened and asked me not to disrespect the church by doing the communion without confession. I promised I wouldn't do it and she is fine with me now. I got a text from my brother wanting to compromise, so I replied by asking if the other lapsed people are being made to take confession too. He said no because it was only nuclear family members. I find it funny since all the others are clearly older than her and she just behaves like this with me and the youngsters. Aita. Sum of comments. Commenter, you should alert the priest to her behavior. He will ensure that she stops with her actions. Reply, I actually considered it but I don't think I will since my grandma might be doing it herself. She has lapsed herself but didn't want me to be disrespectful, but she knows the priest that will be officiating and is not really happy with all the sideshow. Demand an apology in order to go. I already told my parents I am not coming no matter what. They are clearly not pleased with how she spoke to me, but even more displeased with my brother, but we agreed on not intervening more. If he wants to marry her it's his decision. He's an adult and needs no permission, but what he would lose has been made clear to him. Commenter, I would let grandma handle it. She sounds feisty. How old is she? Reply, my grandpa used to say she was like a firecracker lol. She's 81 and has been lapsed for like 25 years I think. She still has friends in the church community and all, but they respect her decision not to participate in the rites anymore. Commenter, can't you just go get a blessing? I'm an atheist but my parents are hardcore Catholics and my dad became a deacon last year. They asked us, me and my siblings, to go get blessings as a compromise as none of us are religious. Reply, my issue is not about the blessing, it's that she singles me out and wants to have some sort of authority above me. A bunch of my family are lapsed but she has not made a big deal over it except of me. Her stupid argument falls apart because my oldest brother is also lapsed but she doesn't seem to care, or maybe she has not realized it. She has not mentioned anything to him, but is making a huge deal because I don't participate. One of the top comments. Commenter, NTA who died and made Emma Pope. Reply, LOL, I will share this particular one with my grandma next time we talk. She is gonna love it. Update post 1. Things have moved but I wouldn't call any of this a positive progress. I would like to clear something I kept seeing in the comments. I won't request a special blessing or go in the queue for communion. It isn't about the blessing or the compromise but the singling me out. I often just stay quiet or take a general family blessing if we go to weddings, etc. I have no issue with compromises, I have an issue with Emma and her ridiculousness. I don't know why she has this thing with me. I do look young but not like a teen or a child obviously. She has 2 younger sisters and is very authoritative with them. I have witnesses her being very my way or the highway with younger people, so she has issues for sure. The confrontation from the last post was on Tuesday and today we had lunch at my grandma's. I think you should also know that my brothers have a tricky relationship, as in they are not as close with each other as they are with other siblings. My older brother, Robert, is very no-nonsense and he has never been a fan of Emma, but he didn't think he should have to intervene because Luke is an adult and capable of navigating relationships. All this is gonna be relevant, I promise. We visit Grandma a lot since she lives by herself and we truly enjoy her company. Today we were all there because she is over this drama already. After a lunch, that was more like snacking to be honest, she asked us all to clear the air. Emma continued with her rant about me being a disrespectful person and that she was asking the bare minimum from me. My grandma asked her why she had no issue with her not taking communion and Emma said that she was her elder and for sure her reasons were more than a tantrum like it was in my case. She also repeated that she was asking this of all the siblings and I was the only one that was being difficult with her tiny request. This is where everything crumbled for her. I mentioned in the comments that Robert is also lapsed and he was already exhausted by this situation. He asked her why she had no issues with him not taking communion and she looked like a kid that was caught. She didn't have a proper answer. Robert then asked her if she even knew why he and Grandma became lapsed. She shook her head and looked at Luke for help. Luke on the other hand was staring angrily at Robert and I but said nothing. Robert explained to Emma he was the reason Grandma became lapsed. When Robert was a teen he came out as gay and was so worried about our grandparents' reaction since they were very active in the Catholic Church. Grandma felt awful about it and even worse when she went and spoke about this with the then priest of her church. That priest was super old school and told her that Robert was committing sins, he was going to hell, he needed to find his way, the whole 9 yards. Grandma didn't take that so well and simply stopped going to church and started spending that time with her grandchildren. Over the years she started getting into the whole community again but she decided she was done taking the sacraments. She respects parts of the church but can't fully reconcile with it. Emma was a bit confused since Robert is married to a woman and he explained he is bisexual and ended up with a woman just as he could have ended with a man. He also commented they are not married in the church but that didn't matter to her like it mattered when it came to me. He asked her directly what her problem with me was. Long story short, she said I was rude since the beginning and kept treating Luke wrong. Oh, and I also was very snarky about looking younger than her. Crickets. She is a beautiful successful woman so I still don't understand her obsession but it seems like she wants people to see I respect her and what she says. I just started laughing, she started crying and saying I turned my grandma against her. My grandma told her to stop blaming people for her being a negative person and she was always going to side with me over her. Luke got upset at that and asked her why she was not supporting him and she simply said she doesn't support him being a lapdog for a crazy woman. More was said, nothing got truly resolved. I was kind of invited again but declined going. Grandma is undecided if she even wants to go at all. My older siblings told Luke they will go to the ceremony if he seeks couples therapy or at least therapy. My parents are having headaches and now dislike Emma so much they can't hide it. Oh, and yes, Grandma spoke with the priest and he wants them to do extra premarital counseling or he won't officiate. I hope they don't get married but he is old enough to derail his life if he wants. I thank you for letting me vent and my grandma loved the Pope joke. Update post 2. My brother has gone too far and I decided to be done with him. He made our grandma cry and I think permanently damaged a lot of his relationships. I want to mention some of my cousins and other family members thought I was just stubborn and creating drama but now there is no longer my side or Emma's side. Maybe he always felt this way but the issue he has with Robert is absolutely ridiculous. He was so upset with what Grandma said about him being Emma's lap dog that he called her to speak about it. I was obviously not present for the conversation but Grandma told me what happened and Luke confirmed it. He told her that it was unfair of me to ask Robert for help since he was her favorite grandchild and would get her to side with me no matter how wrong I was. He also told her that many of the cousins believed this and that it was so obvious since she even left her religion for him. He claimed the other LGBTQ+ members of the family, most were not even born when Robert came out by the way, doubted if she would do it for them. So Grandma explained to Luke and then call every single one of her grandchildren to ask them how they felt and explain to each a part we didn't know. She said that when Robert came out and she spoke with the old priest he hinted about knowing of places to set Robert straight. Grandma had heard horror stories from these places and so had Robert and they both spoke with my parents together about that not being an option at all. My parents never intended to send Robert there and are very casual Catholics, but Grandma wanted to cover the basis just in case. I was told Grandma sounded like she had been crying on the phone and after the first couple of calls, which went from oldest to youngest the group chat started to blow. Robert is livid, our LGBTQ+ cousins are livid and say Luke lied, even the cousins that were telling me to stop being a stubborn head are livid. By the time I was up for my call I was already on the way to Grandma's. 2 of my cousins were already there and the youngest one, Sarah, 16F, was ready to literally fight Luke. For a bit of levity, Sarah is about 35 centimeters smaller than Luke, and the image of her swinging at him made me laugh a bit. She asked if I was making fun of her, and I just explained the whole mental image of her trying to hit him, and she admitted it was kind of funny. What I didn't tell her is I would love to slap some sense into Luke. My grandma has been through so much in her life, and this is not what we want for her. She looks puffy-faced and kept asking everybody if they truly felt unloved by her, saying she would do everything for any of us. Explaining how Robert was the oldest grandchild, but that didn't mean she loved the rest any less. She is a strong woman, but I think something inside her broke a little with the thought she hurt her grandchildren. It was a shit show, a big one, and I was just so done with Luke. My parents have been passive towards the situation so far because I asked them to, but after they heard what happened they told him they need time away from him. Robert is simply disgusted and decided to not speak with him anymore, which he communicated through the cousin group chat, with Luke's response being that this is why Emma's help on reigning all us would be so beneficial if we just let her. He also added how Robert never cared for him or anybody really, and he just tried to be the center of attention all the time. He cited his coming out, his announcement he was gonna marry a woman, the birth of his child. It was ridiculous. He came out when Luke was a toddler, and for many years only our parents and grandparents knew. He announced he was gonna marry his now wife through a text but didn't interfere or took from anybody. His child was born 4 months before Luke's graduation, and apparently that was a big issue for Luke that he never commented. Maybe I am biased, maybe I am selfish like Emma claims, but I call bullshit on his tantrum. Every single one of the cousins has been helped, babysat, tutored, gotten out of trouble, you name it, by Robert. He isn't perfect, but he isn't the conniving ass Luke is claiming. Maybe Luke has always felt inadequate and we didn't notice, maybe it was his last-ditch effort, maybe Emma has manipulated him so far that he can't come back. It doesn't matter anymore. If he does marry Emma, I wish him the best. If he doesn't, I hope he goes to therapy. Regardless of what he decides, he burned so many bridges and hurt so many people. I don't see this resolving anytime soon. For now I will focus on my grandma and making her feel better. I feel extremely guilty because it was Emma's situation with me that opened this can of worms. I know I shouldn't, but it's hard not to. Sum of comments. OOP's relationship with Luke. Reply: if he asked for help and apologized sincerely, I would be there in 2 seconds. He knew what he was doing when he spoke without grandma. He knew it would cause her pain. He knew he would hurt Robert too. Robert might not be crying, but he feels bad about the situation. He has always looked out for everybody and even has pics of him holding every single one of us as babies all over one of his walls. I always knew they were not the closest of brothers, but this is too much. Commenter: it may be that her purpose is to isolate him. Please tell your grandmother from another old lady not to doubt herself because Luke has decided to live in Crazy Town. Reply: I don't know anymore. He is still very active with our maternal family so far. I am unsure how they will react when or if they hear what happened, because both families have a great relationship. He still has a strong support system when it comes to friends. Some even dislike or disapprove of Emma and are vocal about it. I am seriously on the wave that this was low-key less about me and more a poke to Robert. And thanks, she really needs a lot of love. Commenter: look back at her having an issue with you because of how you mistreat Luke. Which from your account doesn't seem happens. It sounds like your brother has created a narrative of the situation that is likely not recognizable as truth by anyone else. Maybe he resents being the kid and no one listening to him and figures he can get his way by acting victim. Reply: you hit a point I have been trying to avoid. Maybe he has been like this all the time and Emma is just putting a magnifier on it. I must say he was the center of attention when it was about him: graduations, birthdays, presentations, engagement party. He got celebrated on his achievements just as loud as everybody else. Grandma tried to always be there, so did our parents. He was always invited to stuff, always asked for his opinion on group decisions. He has always been loved. Update post 3. I want to start this by saying that Grandma is in better spirits now. I am overwhelmed by the amount of people supporting her and very grateful for it, even if it's online. I have talked about this on some chats and DMS, but please know the situation with Emma is not about her being prettified or her family being strict Catholics, it's just her being her. They were already going to get premarital counseling, an extra was added. Oh, all cousins also don't live in the same city or town, some are a bit longer than others, but we keep in touch through the chat. The reason for the update is mainly to let people know Grandma is okay, her health is fine, and she had a blast with my cousin Sarah. I also want to update on what has happened with the cousins and the maternal side of our family. Some of our paternal cousins, from Grandma's side, have relented and feel a bit bad on excluding Luke from things, so the compromise was met on: he can be invited to everything, just don't force people to interact. These cousins are mainly on the older side and have soft spots for the youngsters. My youngest cousin, Sarah, said she was okay with it all, but she wanted them to keep him away from her since she can't stand him anymore. Our maternal side was a shitshow, because of course we need one. Some of them were very upset, but others told me I should try to understand where he was coming from. My mom was the one that told them everything, and some told her she is at fault for making Robert the star of the family. This was so uncalled for but brought some issues in my family, particularly when one of my maternal cousins asked me if I could behave enough if I am seated at the same table as Luke for his wedding. It makes us doubt ourselves, but really, this is a cousin that Robert has bailed from almost bankruptcy 2 times and he's the problem. I haven't said much about my sister, Lucy, since she voiced nothing different before. She was always very close to Luke and even had a great relationship with Emma before the debacle. She decided to be out of it because she was so disappointed. While she was never made to babysit or anything like that, she was always so into Luke since he was her baby brother. She loved him the most, and I know that because she literally told me when I was a kid. We have a good relationship now because her kids are my buddies, but it was rough for a while before that. She was upset about the whole thing, but when our maternal family, or at least a part, started excusing Luke, she lost it. She is a very calm person, the type you don't expect a bad word out of, but she lost it, and I think it was the last straw on the cold bucket for Luke. She sent a massive message about what has been happening, detailing every single thing, and daring people to kind of come at her if they disagreed. She made sure to include every single nasty thing, every bad word, every eye roll. She sent it to so many people because she was tired of the half-information telephone game. She is upset at me because my refusals made this happen, and she said she knows she shouldn't, but she needs time to fix her feelings, so she is not speaking with me right now. My parents decided they were out of the wedding and told Luke he is on his own. There was never a monetary issue, they were willing to contribute, but both Luke and Emma are pretty well off and was no need for that. Now to what maybe most people want to know, and the only conflict I am interested about anymore. My grandma is feeling better. Sarah being with her was very positive. It was lovely to see the eldest and youngest of our family so in tune, but then again they have always been. She requested that Sarah invited Luke to her birthday party, December, and after a lot of back and forward he is going to be invited. We will see if he comes or not. A small parenthesis, I showed my grandma the joke of the knife, sword, etc., she was so giddy. Thank you. Editor's note, this is the scene from The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. You have my sword, and you have my bow, and my axe. I mentioned before that Robert would pick up Sarah if she needed. It is still true. What I might have not mentioned is that she of course gets a weird lecture from him, and an even weirder lecture on how he rates certain drugs. LOL. As I said, he is no saint, but he is not a shit either. Lastly, yes, he has photos even with my sister or me in the newborn wall. People love to take pics of him holding the new family members, and he collected them and put them together when he got his own house. Some of comments. Commenter. How did we go from, I won't do confession, to everyone blaming Robert for the end of your brotherly relationship while simultaneously all of them also blaming you for everything? Reply, have you met Catholic families? Jokes aside, I think it's easier to blame Robert and I than Luke, since we are not going to go on a rampage that would hurt people. Sister. I think my sister is upset with me because of her closeness with Luke. She used to tell me she loved me but not like Luke. She always babied him and was upset her kids were closer to me than Luke but never forced anything. The LOTR quotes. She was so excited that Sarah almost convinced her to watch LOTR, almost. Bailed out, cousin. It's deeper than that. The first time it happened Robert organized a fund so people could help out and do it faster. The second time, he even sold a couple stuff so he would reach the goal faster. This cousin has a house because of Robert, and Robert does this type of things because he doesn't want anybody to feel powerless. Robert made clear he will not help him anymore and made it clear, my cousin is spiraling now. Update post 4. As I mentioned in my last update, some of the older cousins were feeling bad about excluding Luke and the compromise was reached. But as good or as much as we want to be good, we are no saints, so we decided to test the waters before the birthday to be safe. We had a lunch party with a lot of the family in attendance and tried our best, or at least some of us did. During the trial lunch Emma was trying to get Sarah to speak with her. As I mentioned before, Sarah was looking into following on Luke and Sarah's steps, but now she doesn't even want to be in the same room as them. Emma has not taken this well and tried to engage Sarah several times before the lunch, but Sarah was not budging, so at one point Emma lost it. She grabbed her by the arm and sternly told her she needs to stop being disrespectful, and well, Sarah lost it. She started screaming at Emma to don't touch her, in way more colorful language, and everybody lost their shit. Fortunately Luke was close by and took Emma and Sarah apart. How this adult thought it was a good idea to grab a teenager is beyond me, but then again this is Emma we're talking about. Things calmed down a bit and the rest of the day was uneventful apart from Emma's stares. Emma was blocked by most people and she was very hurt by it. How do I know this? Because Luke made a whole speech about it to my parents, but well. She is now particularly focused on Sarah being rude to her and calling her a disrespectful child. She of course blames me for starting this and is sure I put ideas in everybody's heads. In total I have met Luke and Emma about 3 times since my last update and kept my distance. Luke has been ignoring Robert, making a big show about doing it every time, like a child. My sister came around and started talking with me again, and not much has changed since we were never that close, and it's mainly to coordinate meetings between my nibblings and I. Now on to the important event that was Grandma's birthday. It was amazing. She had a blast with family and friends that wanted to celebrate her. She is very well liked, so it was a considerable amount of people in attendance. She was like a giddy princess and didn't stop smiling the whole time. The only wrinkle was Emma and Luke giving out their wedding invitations. It was tacky, but nobody was surprised. Some of my maternal family members in attendance were a bit awkward about it, while some of my paternal family simply left the invitations on their tables. Emma gave them to my husband and Robert's wife, which made them laugh, and she was annoyed but didn't say anything. They also got Grandma the envelope in front of some of her friends and asked her to please open it. Luke knows we never open anything until after the parties, but the insistence was such she did read what it was, said thank you, and went back to her conversation. I assumed they were expecting her to be excited or share the news with her friends, but that was obviously not going to happen. Luke approached Sarah with hers and told her Emma has decided to make her a bridesmaid to repair their relationship. Sarah replied with woof woof. Luke looked like he was about to cry. He used to be Sarah's idol and she adored him, now she mocks him. He told our aunt and uncle she should be grounded for being so mean, and they said they agreed with it. Sarah received a 15 minutes punishment of helping carry gifts to the car. The wedding date is March 27th. They will have the reception in a family backyard, still a pretty big space, enough for like 100, due to the considerable downsizing they had to do since a lot of people are saying no or simply not even acknowledging the invitation at all. They tried to pull a Hail Mary during the birthday, but it was a fiasco. Grandma has officially declined the invite, and we will plan something fun for that weekend. I guess this is it, the countdown to see if he actually marries her is on. And yes, I know it sounds mean, but we truly hope he doesn't, but we'll see. Some of comments. Commenter, this is far from over. You guys need to wall off Sarah. A teen shouldn't have to defend herself from crazy-ass Emma. And by no means should she be a bridesmaid. I can imagine the kind of crazy-ass entitled shit she'd have to do for the wedding. Don't Emma have friends she can torture instead? Reply, it was a quick moment and totally unexpected. Emma had never tried anything physical before. Sarah isn't even going to the wedding, let alone being a bridesmaid. It's just Emma being her ridiculous self, thinking she can control others. Emma already has 4 bridesmaids, including friends, although I am not up to date with the actual number. Emma's family, well, I can let you know what I know. She loves to be in charge, and her parents have always enabled her. She has younger sisters and thrives on being a respected person. It's a bit like an obsession of her. The few times I met her family, they seemed a bit snobbish but polite people. They do know about all that has been happening and contacted my parents after the birthday party because Emma was very hurt. People dismissed the invitations and felt our attitude towards Emma and Luke, particularly that of Grandma and Sarah, were out of line. I truly don't know what they expect. For my dad to ground her mother for not participating in the circus that is the wedding, or force Sarah to be a bridesmaid to a woman she doesn't intend to talk to ever again. It seems like Emma's entitlement comes from her being treated like a princess that does no wrong, but that doesn't fly with my family. Commenter, I have a feeling the Luke is eyeballs deep into the sunk cost fallacy. Reply, there is a theory going around my family that they haven't had sex and that's why he is like this. To a different commenter, what's worse is I know for a fact Luke is not a virgin. But the theory has gained a lot of traction, even Grandma is starting to believe it. Final update post. I think we have reached a conclusion to the will they won't they on the wedding. The holidays were mostly pretty uneventful. My husband, Phil, and I spent Christmas with my grandma and some other relatives. We exchanged gifts and had a good time. Luke did an appearance and brought gifts for several people, not me, and had an argument with Sarah again because she refused to accept his gift. I mentioned it before, but she truly thought he was the best thing on the planet, so it was his way to try and bribe her love. Sadly for Luke, Sarah has all the spiciness and stubbornness of Grandma but not her tact yet. He met with my sister and my parents, but he was already pretty down from what they told me. Things after the holidays were mainly drama-free. There were some birthday parties they attended, but most people kept them at a distance. Last time I mentioned the wedding date was March 27th. Clearly that's no longer the case, and it's due to 3 main things: Luke's friends, the guests ignoring them, and them trying to save face. Most of Luke's friends have never been very big fans of Emma, but it turns out they didn't know the full story about the issues in the family, which to be honest makes sense. But when it came to planning the bachelor party and luncheon, they realized most of the family was not even going. One of his oldest friends contacted my parents to ask what was going on because Luke seemed pretty upset when asked and said Robert made it happen. Sure. When they heard of all the ridiculousness, including Emma grabbing Sarah, half of them told him they loved him but couldn't support this wedding. Luke lost it and said it was not his fault and even got into an argument with my parents, and my dad admitted he told his friends the truth with hopes he would call off the wedding. They haven't spoken since. Then I heard from the grapevine, aka my sister, about the lack of response to the invites and how they could not calculate anything properly. Emma was losing it because empty seats was worse than having to explain why half of Luke's family was not in attendance. They decided to elope. The official explanation is they just couldn't wait to be married. So it turns out they did end up getting married. It happened about a week ago and the guests were mainly her family and a couple friends. My sister said Luke was very upset about the lack of support, and I know it's hard, but he chose this. If you didn't know, you would think it was a very romantic day with all the photos they took and posted. The trip Sarah wanted to take with Grandma is still up for next week. It's just a day trip, but I am sure we are gonna have a blast. Things will remain frosty and some relationships will never be the same, but at least this chapter is over. Sum of comments. Commenter. Wait, so she got married outside the church, which is something she was dissing you for. Pot, meet kettle. Reply, my grandma thinks she is a worse Catholic than all of us and I agree. Luke being trapped in a marriage now, honestly. I think this is what he wanted all along. He seems to be loving playing the victim. My dad is super pissed at him and doesn't even want them on his birthday, but my mom and sister said to invite them, otherwise my brother would be even more isolated. Is grandma adopting? She knows about the posts and she would love an extra grandchild that's cool as you. Stories number 7. My M30, younger brothers, M28, girlfriend, F25, said something that made me, and everyone else in the room, super uncomfortable. It's been months and it's still a problem. How do I get everyone to move past this? So, some background, my brother, we'll call him John, and I are very different people and always have been. I'm a nerdy guy who like playing Dungeons and Dragons and works from home coding websites. He's always been sporty and has one of those corporate office jobs where I swear half of his work is just playing golf and going to fancy lunches. We didn't always get along, but we're pretty good these days. He started dating his girlfriend, who we'll call Jane, a few years back during what was a pretty low point for me in life. I had just gotten out of a long-term relationship that had ended anything but amicably, was burning out of the career I went to college for, and in general was about 2 paychecks away from having to move in with my folks. The stress of it all was taking a toll on my body. I went from the lightly chubby I'd been my whole life to just straight up fat, and shortly after the breakup I had an anxiety attack so bad it put me in the hospital. It was not a good time to get to know me. I was basically the picture of a fuck-up older brother, but I turned it around. I got the mental health assistance I needed to diagnose and treat some long-standing issues. With that as a springboard, I started exercising more and eating better, finding cooking to be a good hobby that also led to me eating less takeout and processed foods. I'm still no Adonis, still got a bit of a tummy, but I'm much stronger and feel better. I was able to quit my job and find a new one in a field that I never considered but that I found I loved enough that I'm going back to school to work on a PhD in the fall so I can pursue it to a greater extent. And finally, I started dating again, someone, we'll call her Flo, who was a better match for me than my ex. Which all brings us to the night things went wrong. We have a family gathering at my parents' house, extended family and all plus Jane and Flo. I'm making dinner, a beef Wellington. Everyone is raving about my food. I also did dinner this past Thanksgiving as well, and also my recent glow-up, my new job, the program I got into, etc. I'm smiling politely and mostly just trying to do a bunch of dinner prep while they won't get out of my way. Then Jane says, yeah, never thought I'd picked the wrong brother, but I'm starting to think I might have. You could hear a pin drop. I said nothing, again, just awkwardly laughed at what I assumed to have been a bad joke. Jane's face immediately changed to the look of someone who has only just realized their fuck-up. John looked pissed, and the two of them left the kitchen shortly after. From what I could see, she seemed to be trying to apologize to him while he looked really hurt. My relative said nothing, not immediately anyway. Flo kind of just winced, and later told me that it was really awkward having to stand there, but she didn't know what else to do that wouldn't have escalated things or put me on the spot. That was over 2 months ago, and both John and Jane avoid me like the plague. Not even a text since then. Whenever I meet up with my relatives they badmouth her over it, and while I think Jane did fuck up saying that, I really do think she was just making a bad joke. Personally, I think they're overreacting. This aside, I think she's probably the first person he's ever dated who was a fit for him in terms of personality and lifestyle. The only person being normal about it is Flo, who thinks it was weird but like me just a dumb thing to say. No jealousy, she knows Jane ain't my type. How do I clear the air with Jane and John and get people to stop bringing this up? I'm sick of hearing about it and just want things to go back to how they were before. Right now it just feels like a dark cloud over all of our interactions. Stories number 8. Aita because I think my husband's female friend is being inappropriate. My husband, 40M.N., had worked at a job where he was the top supervisor of his department. For a while, there was an employee, 25-28-ish F.K., that he was mentoring. For context, this is a job that requires a specialized degree and internship. I also have this same degree and job, but I do more freelance work. When K worked with N, she was also a supervisor but just under him. N was the head supervisor for the department and K was a mid-level supervisor along with another person, S, 40 SM, also married. N always thought K was a super prodigy and he mentored her a lot. This was fine, nothing weird because I understand how the industry works and I know that mentoring younger people in the career is normal. When K left that job, N maintained a friendship and communication with her because still wanted his guidance and mentorship. I was fully aware of this and knew they would talk about work stuff often. I have also known K for the entire time and we have always been cordial. We spoke friendly enough at work events for their company. I was invited to her wedding and graduation party with N. She has never purposefully excluded me from any events she invited N to. I have tried multiple times to show her kindness and extend friendship to her but she is not receptive. For example, for her graduation, I put together an amazing gift for her because we share an interest in the same hobby, so I gifted her high-quality supplies for it. She was aware that the gift was put together by me because N told her I did, but she only wrote a thank you note to N for the gift and years of mentorship. She literally did not even acknowledge me in the note at all. I have also invited her to social events I was hosting but she always turned them down. Here is the current issue, K is getting divorced. She texted N and told him about it, and then she suggested that they go out with S to catch up. Originally the plan was to get brunch on a weekend and catch up. But now, K has turned the get-together into a full dinner and drinks. When K shared these plans with N and S, her exact text, I saw it on N's phone, was, "So which one of you guys is going to buy my drinks?" I know it could be an innocent text between friends, but it struck me as flirty and inappropriate. Also, this woman is also gorgeous and very intelligent. Reminds me of Izzy from Grey's Anatomy. In general, she would be a very desirable woman, so it just feels weird to me that this newly single woman would reach out to two married men and suggest they all go out and buy her drinks. I mentioned this to N and he said it was because K is younger than us and still in her party phase, and she didn't mean anything by it. But he mentioned to K that maybe they should just do dinner and skip the drinks because I thought it was weird. K flipped out. She called me a bitch and is saying that I am slut-shaming her and accusing her of husband stealing. So, am I wrong to think it was inappropriate? Aita. Stories number 9. Neighbors saw me naked through my window and called the police. Cannot stop thinking about it. A few nights ago, late at night, I was doing laundry in my room and had my window open. It was a bit warm. I live on the 4th floor of my building and the window to my room is facing the street neighborhood, but it's quite high and you can only really see the ceiling from the street unless I'm standing right next to it. Anyways, I had my phone propped against my window screen so I could watch YouTube while folding some of my shirts, important later. I had a lot of clothes on the floor and at one point got up onto my bed to stop stepping on things and continued tending to my laundry there. I was so in the zone that I, very stupidly, took my clothes off so that I could throw those in the wash. When standing on my bed, I am likely visible from a high enough angle, like if someone in a higher apartment looked out their window. But I was on there for maybe a minute before throwing those in the wash and putting on fresh clothes. However, apparently one of my neighbors saw me do this from their window and recorded a video of me, then called the police. In one of the most embarrassing and frightening encounters I have had, they came to my door and asked if I have a window that faced that direction. I said yes, and they informed me that some of my neighbors had a concern about me being naked in front of the window and that I was recording people on my phone. I informed the officers that I was doing laundry and was watching videos on my phone, and profusely apologized. I also asked if the family would like me to apologize directly, but they said, "We should be good." The officer also said, "What you're doing isn't technically illegal, but," and informed me to be more careful, noting that the family said their daughter had apparently seen me. The other officer also said, "We aren't here to get you in trouble." I have no idea if they were telling the truth or just saying that. The encounter ended when they asked for my name, number, and if I had any previous citations. They told me to close my blinds and not do laundry on the bed, obviously, then left. I have not heard from anyone since, and this was on Sunday night, posting this on Thursday. My blinds have been pulled shut tightly since the incident, and I am deeply embarrassed. However, I can't stop anxiously thinking about coming home to a charge or being arrested randomly for indecent exposure, which would ruin my life. I also feel gross about someone recording me naked in my home and calling the police on me. I get why they did that, if they felt they needed proof, but I feel extremely violated by that, even though I know I was being incredibly stupid and careless. I truly did not even think about my window being open. Anyways, should I consult a lawyer? Should I be concerned about a warrant being issued for my arrest? How likely is it that the police will charge me? Does this sound like just a warning or the start of an investigation? Is there anything I can do about the video? I would prefer not to have someone I don't know possessing a video of me naked. Thank you in advance. I literally cannot stop thinking about this and have anxiously Googled any information I can 1,000 times. Stories number 10. My 68F mother was given away for adoption. Now her 69M, 72M, 65F bio siblings are asking her to care for her 96F bio mother. I, 35F, grew up in the US, born and raised in Austin, Texas. My father, 70M, is Canadian, and my mother, 68F, is Greek. Every summer, we vacationed in Greece with my maternal grandparents. When I was 25, my parents retired and moved permanently to Greece after my mother inherited a house and a significant amount of money from her mother when she passed away. That's when things took a strange turn. During the last few months of my grandmother's life, my mom went to Greece to care for her, as she was no longer able to take care of herself. In her final days, my grandmother revealed a shocking secret: my mom was adopted. She wasn't the biological child of the parents who raised her. Instead, she was the daughter of my grandmother's cousin. Apparently, in Greece, decades ago, it was common for struggling families with many children to give a baby to a relative who couldn't have kids. My mother was devastated. She grieved the fact that she never knew her real family and that no one ever told her. After my grandmother passed, she decided to move to Greece to reconnect with the biological family she never met. She traveled to the region where her biological mother lived and met her for the first time, along with 2 older brothers and a younger sister. Her oldest brother was especially emotional because he vaguely remembered the day they gave my mother away as a baby. But from the start, my mom was hurt that none of them had ever tried to find her. Their excuse was that she had moved to the US, and it was difficult to track her down, while her biological mother said she had made a pact with her cousin, my adoptive grandmother, never to reveal the truth. The entire village had been told that my mom had died as a baby, so no one ever questioned it. For the past 10 years, my parents have lived in Greece, and my mom has built a close relationship with her siblings. However, her relationship with her biological mother has remained distant and formal. She never got over the fact that this woman kept all her other children but gave her away, likely because she was a girl. At the time, boys were valued more because they worked the fields and contributed to the family's income, whereas girls were seen as a burden. 2 years ago, I was able to move to Greece as well, since the parents who raised my mom left her a sizable inheritance. It allowed us to live comfortably, and honestly, I preferred the lifestyle here. We live in a beautiful place near the capital, and life is peaceful. Now, here's the issue. My mom's biological mother is now 96 years old and in very poor health. Her biological father passed away decades ago due to political circumstances. Her 2 older brothers, her sister lives abroad, have been taking care of their mother, but they are exhausted. Their wives are complaining, tensions are rising, and at a recent family gathering, they told my mom that she should also help take care of their mother because it's unfair that they are doing it alone. My father was furious when he heard this and told my mother to cut them off entirely. My mom refuses to take care of this woman, she doesn't love her, doesn't feel any emotional connection to her, and can't forgive her for abandoning her. My mom is not close to this woman's, and of course she has no legal claim to any inheritance from this family. However, she has truly enjoyed her relationship with her siblings and their children and doesn't want to lose that. She's feeling pressured, though, and she's deeply upset by their demands. When I found out, I was livid. How dare these people ask this of my mother, knowing full well that she was abandoned and that no one even attempted to find her. I feel like they're manipulating her, and she's unable to see how unfair this is. I'm getting married in a month to my fiancé, who is Greek and fully supportive of me, and I am seriously considering uninviting all of them from the wedding. I want to send a clear message that we don't want contact with them anymore. However, my mother is hesitant, she doesn't want to escalate things, even though she's hurting. I feel like she's not as attached to these people as she thinks. She's mourning the idea of the family she never had rather than truly loving these people. And I hate seeing her being taken advantage of. I always idealized Greece and the strong bonds of family, but now I see that's not always the case. I'm so disappointed by all of this. What would you do in this situation? Would you cut them off? Would you disinvite them from the wedding? How can I help my mother navigate this? This is a throwaway account because I'm very active on Reddit and don't want people to know my personal business. Edit, I forgot to mention something I think is important. My mom suggested they find a senior care facility to put her biological mother in. She even offered to pay a quarter of the price. My biological uncles were offended because they said it was disrespectful to their mother to put her in a nursing home. Another Greek thing. Although they are generally financially comfortable, a quarter for a good structure can mean 400 to 500 euros person per month. Which, by Greek standards, is enough. I think their idea of help is taking her biological mother home for a few months. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, your mom doesn't owe her anything, and her siblings are being unfair. Cutting them off completely might be extreme if she still values the relationship, but she should set firm boundaries. For the wedding, if their presence would stress you or your mom out, uninvited them. If you'd rather keep things neutral, that's fine too. Do what feels right for you both. Commenter 2, likely the sons are tired of taking care of mom and I'm betting their wives are complaining the most. Wives are, what is this new daughter doing? She should help. Heaven only knows how much help they think your mom should do. It is a slippery slope with no good outcome. Creating distance and firm boundaries between your mom and new siblings is best. Reply, that's my thought exactly. I am having second thoughts and surely some comments gave me some perspective but that's my main thought. Commenter 3, where is this woman's grandkids? That woman had 3 kids that she kept. They all have spouses and kids. Why are they not stepping up? Why is it your mother, which she gave away like a bag of bread, the one who has to now step forward and take care of this woman? Reply, that's another Greek thing I suppose. My bio uncles won't ask their children for help, their whole life is dedicated to helping them so it's not common for grandkids to take elders in and care for them. I avoid all of them so I am not sure what their plans are. Their discussion happened only a few days ago and my mom hasn't responded yet, but me, an empty dad, are furious and I don't like the idea of helping her in any way. Commenter 4, it's your wedding, your choice. But it does sound like your mom does want a relationship with her bio siblings. And if you do uninvited them plus mom saying she won't help financially physically to look after bio mom. Sadly I'm sure they'll cut her off. Which is sad. I understand your mom being hurt by what her bio mom did. Was it a financial reason as not to keep her? As it sounds like they had the 2 boys already. But equally, she went on to have and keep another little girl after your mom. So that must be upsetting. I would also be very angry they'd led everyone to believe I'd died at birth. I know different religions, cultures etc. do things differently. I can totally understand if she couldn't cope, then of course give your mom a better life. Which sounds like she definitely had. But to then keep another child after and lead everyone to believe I died out of embarrassment for getting rid of me. I'd be upset. Very upset. Reply, at first I thought that it was for financial reasons but turns out that isn't the case. As I was informed by other Greeks, it was a common thing to do when some family member couldn't conceive. My grandma and grandpa couldn't have children, they were visiting that village from the US, and when my bio-grandma gave birth to my mom they asked for her. My bio-grandma was working hard in the fields and she thought it was a good thing to help her cousin. That's why she had another baby after my mother. They were good financially and they still have enough money etc. It sounds completely crazy to me but apparently families did that, which is something that bothers me from my grandma as well. She went to a family and requested a child and just took her away. I don't know, it seems insane to me. Commenter 5, it sounds like in Greek culture, girls are a burden in the early years when they can't tend the fields, but a boon in the later years when they provide elder care. This was a calculation her bio mom made, and these are the results. Reply, honestly every day I am learning something new about Greek culture. As a child who only came here for vacation, I thought everything in Greece was wonderful, people were great, funny, families were huge and spent time together. But as time goes by, I understand that there are many pathologies and things are far from ideal. OOP explains more about the life in Greece's village. Reply, in Greece's villages women worked really hard. They didn't have water or electricity etc. My bio-grandma had a maid in her house. But still she would help my grandpa and her brothers just like any other woman in the village when they were harvesting smoke from their lands etc. She would walk to the river to wash clothes, she cooked for 7 people, children, husband-in-laws, etc. But they were a rich family. They owned a lot of land, they afforded to have people working for them, they managed to send their children to universities. It was very uncommon for Greece in the 50s and 60s, especially in villages. Update, hey y'all. First of all, thank you so much for all the responses to my previous post. I decided to share it with my mom and let her read your comments. She was really moved by the similar stories some of you shared. This led to a deep conversation between us. Over the past few years, my mom has learned a lot about her adoption. Unfortunately, my bio-grandma was not a good person. The wife of one of my bio-uncles, let's call her Maria, sat my mom down a few years ago and told her everything. Turns out, my bio-grandma was a very strict and spiteful woman who treated the people who worked for her horribly. She never wanted daughters and even tried to give away her other daughter, but that adoption fell through, so she kept her. My bio-aunt went through a really tough time growing up and that's why she moved abroad. Her brothers never supported her the way they should have, and they even cheated her out of part of her inheritance. Maria is now thinking about leaving her husband since their kids are grown, and she doesn't want to stay married to a man she knows isn't a good person. As for my mom, she never felt a bond with her bio mother. But after hearing everything from Maria, she's decided she doesn't want much contact at all. She knows exactly what kind of people her bio brothers are and never wanted a super close relationship with them. They're not in daily contact anyway, but she does feel attached to her nieces, nephews, and their wives. That's the main reason she hasn't cut ties completely. My mom has decided she will help financially but won't take bio grandma into her home. She's doing it mainly to support her bio sister, who is under pressure from their brothers to care for their mother. My mom has tried to get closer to her bio sister over the years, but her sister has kept her distance. She explained that she has deep trauma from growing up with their mother and wants to maintain some emotional space. But she's still happy they met. This past Christmas, my bio aunt came to Greece and stayed at our house. I wasn't there because I was visiting friends in the Netherlands, but my mom and her sister spent time together, and it brought them closer. My aunt told my mom to cut off her brothers completely and even invited her to move to her country. She has made it clear she wants only a formal relationship with the rest of the family, except for my mom, whom she loves dearly. Side note for the skeptics, my aunt is financially independent and comfortable. She has never asked my mom, or anyone else, for anything. I had no idea about most of this because my mom didn't want me to see my uncles in a bad light. She still thinks she'll keep some minimal relationship with them, but she's especially close with a few of her nieces and nephews and doesn't want to lose that. One of my cousins, Maria's son, even confided in my mom that he wants to cut ties with his father. When my bio uncle asked my mom for help, this cousin, who's only 25, pulled her aside and told her to stay away and not give them anything because they don't deserve it. That really got to me. It showed me that not everyone in this family is selfish or manipulative. I actually have a good relationship with this cousin. He gets along great with my fiancée since they work in the same field. After learning all this, I met up with him last night, and we talked. He has moved out on his own but still keeps some contact with his dad, mainly because he wants to wait until Maria leaves before cutting ties completely. He told me that his father and uncle inherited a lot of wealth and never really had to work. They started some businesses, but when they struggled, they took large sums of money from bio grandma and other relatives. Now they've recovered and live comfortably, but they never paid back what they owe. My cousin is ashamed of his family's actions and doesn't want to be judged for them. He also believes they are trying to financially exploit my mom. Because he cares about her and really respects my parents, he warned them not to get involved. After everything, my parents and I made a decision. My mom will give one lump sum of money for her bio mother's care. Whether they put her in a nursing home or hire a caregiver is their problem. She will also have a final talk with her brothers to make it clear that she is not taking care of their mother because that woman was never a mother to her. When Maria manages to get divorced, which my parents want to support her through, we expect the relationship with the brothers to fall apart. My mom is still sad that she never found the ideal family she imagined, but she feels lucky to have her sister, Maria, and her nephew, whom she truly loves. As for the wedding, we decided to invite them to avoid unnecessary drama. That's the update for now. I truly appreciate all the comments and support. I feel sorry for those who have gone through similar painful experiences, and I hope no one has to go through this again. P.S. Someone in the comments, probably a Greek, suggested that my bio-grandpa might have died for political reasons because he was fighting against the Nazis. Unfortunately, it was the exact opposite. My bio-grandparents were right-wing extremists at a time when the left-right conflict in Greece led to suffering and deaths. A lot of their wealth came from unethical means. Lastly, I feel terrible for ever doubting my grandparents, the ones who actually raised my mom. They were amazing, kind, and compassionate people who helped so many others in the US. Everything they had was earned through hard work. I'm so grateful they adopted my mom, and I wish they had also taken in my aunt. Thank you again, everyone. If I have another update, I'll be back. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, she's still being taken advantage of. They will ask for more money. It's always the same story. The brothers get money and the one taking care of the elders is someone who has nothing to do with those swindlers. Reply, no, really, my mom knows what she is doing. She will give an amount of money if they agree to never ask her such a thing. The amount will be relatively small, around 3,000 euros, and she is ready to cut them off entirely if they ever mention anything again. It's not the ideal solution for me either, but I am glad my mother met Maria and I want her to be safe. The reason I came here on Reddit in the first place was the fact that I didn't want my mom to get hurt. Now I know she understands what types of people her bio brothers are, so I am okay with whatever decision she makes. Commenter 2, do you trust the uncles to actually use the money for grandma's care? I feel like they might just pocket it and claim your mom didn't help. Reply, New Omicron, I do not trust them, but neither me nor my mother really care if they will actually help their bio grandma. My mom has already spoken with Maria and her sister and they are aware of her next move. She wants to give the money to help those poor wives taking care of their mother-in-law who made their life a living hell. I am so happy my mother knows everything about her bio brothers. That was my concern in the first place. Commenter 3, why are you still inviting them to your wedding? How will that avoid drama? Reply, well my wedding is in less than a month. They are already invited. If I take back the invitation they will for sure become offensive, at very least. I genuinely want their wives there, especially after learning the truth about their lives and their opinions in the situation, and my cousins. Some of cousins are relatively young and still attached to their fathers, so there is a good chance they will be offended for uninviting their fathers. So we decided to keep them invited to avoid all these things. My mom plans to talk to them about the money etc. after the wedding. We have a lot to organize till then anyway, but if they pressure more for an answer earlier there is a good chance they will not attend anyways. Commenter 4, why would she give them anything if they have all that money? Makes no sense to me. Reply, well my mom is in a significantly better position compared to her bio brothers. She wants to give some money in order for them to sort out what they are going to do, a house nurse or a nursing home. The main reason she decided to do that is to help Maria. She is the one doing most of the caring. She needs some time to organize things about her divorce but she is always busy. Another reason is that a part of her still feels bad about her brothers. She does realize that they are not exactly good people and she doesn't care losing them if they won't respect her boundaries, but she did tell me that they didn't have any chances to become better people. So she kind of feels like she can give them some money in order to help them have some options with their mother, maybe enough for a down payment for a nursing home. She does recognize that she is not obligated to do so, but that's what she wants to do. I am not a huge fan of the idea, but I do support her. New update. Hey everyone, first of all, thank you so much for all the comments and messages. I've been so busy with wedding preparations that I couldn't respond to everyone, but I really appreciate the support. I figured it was time for an update on how everything unfolded. During the wedding planning, things were relatively quiet. I grew even closer to my cousins, my Aunt Maria, and my bio aunt, who came back to Greece for 10 days. I learned some truly heartbreaking things about what the women in this family have endured. After everything, my parents decided to fully support the women however they could and to cut off my mom's bio brothers entirely. The wedding happened last Saturday and it was absolutely perfect, no drama, just happiness. I could make a whole post about it, but it feels unrelated. Then, in the past 10 days, everything exploded. 2 days after the wedding, Maria told my bio uncle that she was divorcing him. Thankfully, we had postponed our honeymoon until the summer, so I was here to support her. She moved into my mom's house, and things escalated fast. My bio uncle lost it. He showed up at my parents' house, yelling and cursing. My dad was completely shocked but immediately kicked him out. Since then, both of my mom's bio brothers have been pushing her not to get involved and to stop putting ideas into Maria's head. But thankfully, Maria's kids are fully on her side. They confronted their father, told him off, and are now helping their mother find a place to stay and supporting her financially. That set off a whole new domino effect. My bio aunt, the one who lives abroad, also confronted her brothers. Up until now, she had kept things relatively civil, but after seeing what happened to Maria, she decided she was done. What we didn't know until recently was that her brothers had been manipulating her too. They told her that if she left Greece and didn't stay to take care of their mother, she would lose any claim to her inheritance. Now that the truth is out, she's taking them to court to get what's rightfully hers. On top of that, her husband, who is honestly an amazing man, had also lent money to my bio uncles years ago. But unlike the rest of us, he was smart enough to structure it as a business loan, and now he's suing them to get it back. The final straw for all of us was finding out about the bio brothers' scheme. Maria told us everything. They had been bitter for years about how financially stable my mom is, thanks to her adoptive parents and the fact that my dad is also well off. They resented that she had a good life while they were constantly struggling due to their own bad decisions. Their plan? To manipulate her into giving them money, using their mother as an excuse. When my mom hesitated about whether she even wanted to contribute to her bio mother's care, they lost it. They started talking behind her back, saying things like, "She'll see what happens to her. She acts like she's rich but won't even take care of her own mother." After that, my mom was completely done. Now, bio grandma is still living in one of my bio uncle's homes, but his wife has now refused to take care of her. She told them either they put her in a nursing home or the other brother, who now lives alone, can take her in. I have no idea how that will play out, but honestly, I don't really care. This Saturday, they've scheduled a final meeting with all the siblings and their spouses to settle things once and for all. Maybe I should have waited until after that to post an update, but I was scrolling through Reddit today and figured some of you might want to know what's been happening. As for me, I'm relieved about how things turned out. I'm so glad my mom never had to give them a cent, and honestly, I owe that to Maria reaching her breaking point. When she overheard them talking about how much money we wasted on the wedding and how they could find a way to get their share, she told my mom everything. That was the moment my mom fully let go of any guilt. I'm also happy that we're cutting ties because I never felt comfortable around them. I never felt any warmth or real connection. That being said, I've caught my mom crying or sitting in silence, clearly deep in thought. She hasn't talked about how much this has hurt her, but I know she's grieving the idea of the family she hoped to have. She spent years trying to get to know them and build some sort of bond, only to realize that it was never real. Still, at least she now knows the truth and won't have toxic, manipulative people in her life. What I am grateful for is the genuine family connections that have come out of this mess. My dad's family is small, and since we lived outside of Canada, I never had much of a connection there. My mom only had her adoptive parents in the US, so I never really experienced what it was like to be part of a big family. Now, for the first time, I feel like I have people I can truly trust and love without second-guessing their intentions. I am nervous about the meeting on Saturday, mostly because of my cousin. He's been through so much with his father, and I feel like he's going to unleash all his anger in that room. I love him so much, and I know he feels like he's finally found real family in us. He also recently came out to his mother, Maria, but he hasn't told his father yet. Maria had no idea. When he told her, she broke down crying, hugged him, and apologized for not creating a safe enough space for him to open up sooner. He had to live a hidden life because of his father's toxic beliefs, and it breaks my heart. Maria also carries a lot of guilt. She never worked independently, she helped in her husband's businesses, but he always controlled the finances. She never felt strong enough to leave, even though she endured so much mistreatment, likely infidelity, and was constantly belittled by both her husband and bio-grandma. She thought staying was the best way to protect her kids from poverty, which in Greece can be brutal, especially for single mothers. But now she realizes that by staying, she also made her son feel like he had to hide who he was. There's so much more I could say, but I recently found out that my story has been shared in different videos online. My husband came across it, and for that reason, I don't want to expose any more personal details about my family unless they choose to share their stories themselves. One last thing, I want to say thank you to everyone who commented. My mom keeps coming back to the post and reading stories from other adoptees. She cries every time, but in a way, it's helping her heal. She sends you all her love. Maybe I'll update again after the meeting. One final question for you all. After everything I've learned, I now know that bio-grandma is and always has been a truly awful person. I wouldn't be surprised if she had some kind of undiagnosed psychiatric condition, but at this point, it doesn't really matter. Even after all the horrible things she's done, even knowing she said things like, "Look at her, that dumb-looking face, good thing I didn't keep her, at least she didn't eat our food for free," I still sometimes feel sorry for her. She's now completely alone. Her grandkids don't visit because she was cruel, even violent, to their mothers. Her sons don't care. The only person stuck with her is her daughter-in-law, who's only tolerating her because there's no other choice. I know she deserves it. I know karma caught up with her. And yet, sometimes, I think about her and cry. What would you do? Would you feel bad in my situation? I want to just ignore it, but I feel so sad at times. Top comments. Commenter 1, some therapy for mom. It will help for her to talk to someone not involved in the family. Commenter 2, first, congratulations on your wedding. I'm glad your mom is finally cutting them out. No, I would not feel bad for bio-grandma. She's reaping what she sowed. Her actions and behaviors are why she's alone. She has no one to blame but herself. There's nothing you can do about it, and no point wasting time feeling bad for someone who spent their life happy making everyone else miserable and continues to do so. Don't waste your energy on someone who doesn't care. Commenter 3, feelings about toxic family members being ill, dying, alone, etc. are frequently complex. You can both hate them and love them. Know they earned their terrible situation and still feel terrible for them. Want to never hear from them again and wish they would love and respect you. Not to mention the fact that most decent people have feelings of compassion for any suffering human. It's completely normal to have such contradictory feelings about your bio-grandmother. You may want to consider a few sessions with a therapist to process all this shit. It's a lot. It could help you let some of your reactions out and kinda integrate this into the story of your life. And help you deal with the contradictory feelings. Stories number 11. Aita, my wife got her boobs out on a night out. My friend told me. I said I don't care. Causing a lot of drama. My wife, 41F, was on a night out with friends and ended up bumping into a few of my friends while out. They stayed together most of the night and at one point were in the smoking area at the back of a bar and got talking to a couple of younger women. One of them mentioned wanting to get her nipples pierced but was scared of the long-term damage. My wife then said, I've had mine done for 25 years and there's no damage to them, wanna see? The other woman said yes, so my wife turned her back to the crowd behind so only those around her could see and pulled her top down for what she said, and my friends confirmed, was about 30 seconds. The other woman asked if she could feel them and my wife said yes, and after that the other woman said she could see and feel there and we damage, and now she's convinced. The next morning my friend messaged me to tell me what happened. I said I know, my wife told me. He then said she obviously didn't tell me the full story because I would be more mad, and then proceeded to tell me the exact same story that my wife told me, lol. I said I appreciated him looking out for me, but I'm not mad and I don't really care. Since then I've had all sorts of messages from friends. Some telling me I need to leave her, some telling me not to listen to others and they can't believe all the fuss. Even a couple of friends have said things along the lines of, if you let your wife get away with this it will encourage my wife to behave like this, like I should punish her or something. Came to a bit of a head yesterday as a few of us play for the same Sunday league football side when a couple of my friends were joking about it and one of them said, if I go tell her I want my nipples pierced will she show me? And I laughed and said no harm in asking. Then one of my other friends said, she probably will, the slag, and I lost it and went for him. We got pulled apart, but since then tensions have been quite high with most people supporting me but a few saying it's my fault for not seeing the truth and not seeing how bad the situation is. I genuinely don't know what else I could have done different here. I'm not bothered about it, I'm really not, and I don't need people to be offended on my behalf. When we go on holiday she will be topless all day at the beach where hundreds of people can see her. I can't believe all the fuss about some nipple piercings. So Aita for not caring, my wife got her boobs out on a night out. Comments. Commenter 1. Your wife showed a piercing, not committed a crime, and your so-called friends are acting like the morality police. If their marriages are so fragile that your wife's free spirit is a threat, that's a them problem, not yours. Reply, thank you. I'm glad I'm not going crazy. Commenter 2. If your friends are calling her a slag and other names to your face, they're saying much worse when you're not around. Good on you for standing up for your wife, but you need new friends or friends that at least respect you and your wife. Commenter 3. I second this opinion. Your wife did nothing wrong and it isn't anybody else's business to have an opinion on how she behaves. Honestly, if these so-called friends are calling your wife slurs in front of you, they aren't your friends or worth the breath it takes to tell them to shut their dirty mouths or scrub their dirty minds clean. I'm proud of you for standing up for your wife. Many less or more insecure men would have caved to the peer pressure. Commenter 4. Nta. It's not like she was showing them in a way to be sexual. She was showing her piercings to someone who has contemplated getting the same piercing. Commenter 5. Yeah, context matters. Showing a piercing isn't the same as showing off in a sexual way. Update. Hey, just wanted to provide an update, clear a few things up from my first post and say a big thank you to everyone who responded. A lot of people said I need to change my friend group, but it's only been 5 friends who are getting bent out of shape about this. The rest have been fine about it and say it's no big deal. When she got her boobs out, the 2 girls she was talking to could see, 2 of her friends could see and 2 of my friends could see. Neither of these friends complained nor see it as a big deal. In the UK a smoking area is an outside area and this one was down some stairs too, and the 6 people who saw were the only people in the smoking area at the time, but she had her back to the bar so anyone coming down the stairs wouldn't see. Now on to the update. First of all, me and my wife are still cool and it doesn't bother me one bit what she did. She messaged me that night saying, just had 2 20-year-old blondes playing with my nipples. I assumed she meant men, so replied, looks like someone is getting spit roasted before they come home, and then said something about at least I can play on my PlayStation for longer as I was picking her up when she was done. That's what our relationship is like. We joke and mess around and are honest with each other. As for the Sunday league football team, I didn't play this week and doubt I will again. Of the people who are being weird about my wife, 3 of them play for the team and I decided I can't be around them. I'll play for my brother's team instead from now on. The rest of my friend group are fully behind me and have come to the decision to distance themselves from the weird ones. It's sad that this has drove a wedge in the group, but at least it got some of these people to show their true coolers. I also want to say thank you to everyone who responded. You are all so cool and supportive, and my wife and I loved reading what you all had to say. Thank you all so much. Comments. Commenter 1. Ha. I would have thought showing your titties would make more friends, not chase them away. Reply, agreed. Commenter 2. Some people's insecurity really shows in situations like this. Reply, yeah it does. It's sad. Commenter 3. It's also very sad to see what those men really think of their wives. Hope those ladies find better partners. Commenter 4. Someone called your wife a slag yet they think your wife showing her piercings to younger women interested in the same as the issue is madness. Commenter 5. Your wife showing her tits to someone who asked is nothing compared to how those misogynistic friends just showed the whole group their assholes. Stories number 12. I'm going to make my sister jealous and I love it. My 36F sister, 43F, was the golden child until my parents finally saw the truth. Thank God. She is a narcissist. My parents helped her out on multiple occasions, paid her bills, medical, childcare. My mother even worked for free at her business for years. After a few years of bad luck, my sister declared that this was going to be her year. Why, you ask? Her long-term boyfriend and her are moving in together. When our brother announced that he and his wife were expecting their second child, my sister started pouting, and sent me messages about how inconsiderate it was of them, and I told everyone this is my year. Sister's bad luck years contain the following. She had to close her business because of bad management. Got divorced from her husband. Got split custody for their son. She then moved in with our parents. This is when they saw the truth. Failed to keep a single job for more than 6 months in 4 years. Now this is where it gets good. My husband and I are about to sign the papers for our first house. It's all thanks to a small inheritance left to my husband. We would never been able to get a house without it in today's economy. I have told nobody in the family about the house and I am looking forward to royally ruining her year. This is going to be great. TLDR, I'm buying a house and my narcissist sister is going to be so jealous. Comments. Commenter 1. She seriously announced that it was her year, so nobody else could have a good one. What the actual fuck? Commenter 2. Just make sure you don't ever give her the address. She'll show up on your doorstep expecting to move in. Hell, tell her it's a dream, tiny home. Commenter 3. Sometimes it's the little things and the big ones that give us the most satisfaction. Not be wishing bad on anyone, just being hopeful some see the truth. Hope you have already called dibs every year for the next decade. Commenter 4. As Charlotte would say, you get one day. Not an entire year. OP, I would only give out the barest minimum of information about your new home to your sister. She seems crazy enough that when she eventually breaks up with her boyfriend, she will come nosing about, looking to move in with you. After all, it's not fair that you received a house, she deserves it more. It's her year. Update. Hello friends, I have a fantastic update for you. My husband and I signed the final paperwork and the house is now officially ours. I told my family about the house a few days ago in the family chat. I posted some pictures from the house, exterior, kitchen, living room. There were congratulations and curious questions but no drama. It did take me by surprise. My mother called me within minutes and was so excited about seeing the house. She started telling me about all the things she had given my sister, when sister had bought a house with her ex, and how she wanted to give me the same. That did surprise me, but I guess now that my sister isn't the golden child anymore things have changed. My brother called me today laughing. He had been over to our mother's house and heard sister talking to mom about the house. My sister had been crying about how it was so unfair that everyone was ruining her year. Our mothers had apparently said in the coldest voice, "It's not your year honey, it's mine. My kids are taking big steps into adulthood. And the best part is that you are moving out of my home." My sister had run off crying before my brother made his presence known. Mom then told brother that sister had been grumpy for the past few days and that she wishes sister was moving out now and not in 2 weeks. I am curious though. My sister has said some stuff that make me wonder if maybe she and her boyfriend had made bids on the house. She said some stuff about how the bathrooms needed fixing, but how did she know? The house wasn't listed any longer and all pictures taken down, so how could she possibly know that? Sister later called me to congratulate me on the house. I pretended that I knew nothing. She spent most of the time bragging about her new apartment, 3-bed and bath, and how great it will be because it has a communal pool. I told her that was great and how a big pool would be good, but sadly ours is not that large, but we do have a pool house so that's nice. She hung up on me. Sister will be moving into her place in 2 weeks. Husband and I will be moving in 5 weeks. We'll see what crazy stuff she gets up to then. Comments. Commenter 1. It's not your year honey, it's mine. My kids are taking big steps into adulthood. And the best part is that you are moving out of my home. Priceless. Love it and congrats on the house. Commenter 2. I'd recommend 2 things, security cameras especially anywhere you got important stuff or of value and a lock on the master bedroom if there's none. Though one of those doorbell cameras might be good against trespassers too. Commenter 3. Glad she is no longer the golden child and your parents are proud of all of their kids hugging face. Mommy spilled some hard truths and sister couldn't take it. Stories number 13. I, 34, might be a boy's, 15M, father and I'm anxious about telling my wife. He called me last night after dinner. I thought it was honestly a prank. He mentioned his mom's name who was my ex in high school. And she passed away of complications from COVID a few months ago. She never told him about who his dad was and his grandparents told him. He's calling me with their permission because he apparently wanted to talk to me. I was already speechless and don't think I reacted well to the boy. His grandma, my ex's mom, took the phone from him and I recognized her voice. She explained some more. The fact that my ex found out she was pregnant after I broke up with her because I wanted to go to an out-of-state college and we didn't want to do long distance. She said they were against it because she was still young, but that's how she wanted it. This was too much. I didn't want to believe it. She told me we could get a paternity test done since I don't believe her, but I should get ready to accept that I'm his father once the results get back. This kept me up all night. My wife could tell something's up, but I haven't had the guts to tell her yet. We're still on the fence about having kids. If he ends up being mine, then that impacts both our lives when we weren't even sure about wanting children. A teenager isn't a child, I know, but still. She deserves to know. But I can't get the words out. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. It's not like you cheated on her. And honestly, this boy deserves to know you. You're his only living parent. Get the paternity test. But also tell her the situation. You didn't know and you just found out. But TBH, it's not right to abandon this boy that you unknowingly made just because you and your wife may or may not want kids. He's here now. So you can't snub this boy. He didn't know about you and he did nothing wrong. Tell your wife. If she decides to leave, that's her choice. I feel like she'll be in shock just as you are, but I don't think this is necessarily grounds for divorce. But if this boy turns out to be your blood son, it would be shitty of you to abandon him. In summary, tell your wife that he randomly called you out of the blue saying he's your son, you want to get a paternity test to confirm, offer counseling of some sort so she has an outlet, and you too, to process feelings and then take it from there. Reply, I agree with you completely. If he's my son, I know I wouldn't be able to walk away. It wouldn't feel right to me, and this isn't his fault. I'd like to be part of his life if he's my boy, and that will definitely change my life and my wife's, which is why I'm having a hard time telling her. It's going to be hard for us both, no doubt. Counseling does feel like a good place. I'm feeling so much right now about this, and she will too. Update. Thank you for all your helpful advice when I posted this before. It really eased my nerves about telling my wife, because you're right, it's not like I cheated and I never even knew about the kid. After I told my wife, we reached out to his grandparents to arrange getting a paternity test. My wife and I talked many times even before the results came in. This was wild for her. As it was for me. But she told me if he's my son then he needs me, and she hopes I feel the same way. I do completely. Not gonna run out on the boy for my own actions. I'm glad we were on the same page about that. The fact that she told me she would have lost respect for me if I didn't want to try being involved or at least support my kid was heartwarming. She's incredible. Got the results back a couple days ago and we took a look together. I'm his father. I don't know why, but I was crying. My wife hugged me. Honestly, I don't know why I did. It just hit me that I'm a father and all the time we miss together. We talked to his grandparents again and I got to talk to the boy for a minute, mostly to tell him I'm sorry for how I initially reacted with him and that wasn't fair to him. Kid seems really eager for us to meet, I am too. He asked me if it's okay to call me dad and I'm like, of course it is. We're still trying to figure things out in terms of scheduling a meeting. He has my number now and he texts me every day, nothing in particular, just to say hi. But it makes me smile and he seems like a sweet boy. My wife says he has my crooked smile. I have no idea how she's managing this so well. I've been a wreck these last few days. Going from panicking, holy fuck I have a son, what am I gonna do, to feeling sad and guilty about missing out on his life, and then talking non-stop about little stuff he's told me about himself so far. I've even asked my wife, how the heck are you so composed right now? The following days after I told her, she was distant while she tried to process it, but now she's in that let's get down to business mode. She thinks maybe it's just her way of still processing this. I'm so grateful I told her. Having her support has made this a lot easier. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. I'm happy for both of you. He must be so happy that you reacted so well upon finding out that he is actually your son. It's a crazy story. Glad that I read it. Wish you and your son the best. Reply. I feel bad that I didn't have the best reaction the first time we talked, before the paternity test, and I hope to make up for not being there. He's just an innocent kid wanting to know me and have a connection. Commenter 2. Are you still in another state? Could you have casual meetings in the future, or would it mean traveling each time? Congrats to you and your son. And, somehow, your wife. Reply. Still in the same state. I only went away for college and moved back. They're about an hour or so away from where we live, so traveling wouldn't be too crazy. Commenter 3. You have a great wife. Sounds like you have a good kid as well. I would suggest you consider having him stay with the grandparents unless your wife is okay with him moving in. Whatever you do, both you and your wife should just try to get to know him, become friends. Don't try to parent him since he is practically an adult now and he doesn't know you. Reply. My wife and I have talked about the possibility of him moving in here once we know each other better. His grandma told me he'd like to stay with me soon and she's open to us having some sort of shared arrangement. It'll be a while before that. It's up to him, whatever he decides, and we'll try to make arrangements. Stories number 14. My Muslim boyfriend wants me to convert, but I'm an atheist. How do I navigate this? I, 21F, have been dating a Muslim guy for a while, and he recently told me that he wants to be with someone who is ready to convert. He said his parents would be happy that way. I respect his beliefs, but I am an atheist and have no desire to change that. The thing is, I really like him. This is the safest I have felt in a long time, and emotionally, this relationship has been good for me. But now, I feel like I'm at a crossroads. I don't want to lead him on or compromise who I am, but I also don't want to lose what we have. I'm not sure how to approach this. Has anyone been in a similar situation? How did you handle it? Any advice would be appreciated. Edit. Hey everyone, thank you for your insights and opinions. Honestly, some of them even brought me to tears. This is a difficult time, and it's hard to measure this one moment with other amazing memories. But I'm clear now it's not going to work out. Again, thank you all. Stories number 15. Aita for cutting off my sister after she slept with my son's dad. I, 23F, have a 4-year-old son with my ex, 24M. We've been separated for about 3 years, but we co-parent well and have always tried to keep things respectful for the sake of our son. A few months ago, I found out that my sister, 26F, slept with my son's dad. Honestly, it's a complicated situation that I don't want to get into, but the bottom line is that I had no idea they were even close. I didn't even know they had spent time together outside of the few interactions they had when I was around. She doesn't even live in the same country. I live in the Caribbean, and she came here from South America just last year to attend school. When I found out, I was devastated. Not just by my ex, but by my own sister. She knew everything I'd been through with him. All the lying, cheating, and abuse I endured during our relationship. She knew exactly how much this would hurt me. I told her I couldn't forgive her for what she did, and I cut her off completely. I felt completely betrayed by the one person I thought I could trust. I lashed out and sent some really harsh messages to her on social media, said some hurtful things, and shared pictures and messages with her mom to let everyone know what happened. I put them on blast, and I don't regret it because I needed to express how I felt and they honestly deserved it. Now our family is a bit divided on this. At first everyone was supportive of me, but recently my dad has been telling me that enough time has passed, and I should try to make amends with her. Basically I already told him she cannot come and stay in this same house with me after she did that. He wants her to come back. He says I'm being too spiteful and that I should consider forgiving her, but I just can't. I know he feels bad that the family isn't speaking to her, mostly our cousins, which was heavily influenced by me, but I feel like I don't ever want to speak to her again. Aita for refusing to forgive her and cutting her out of my life. Stories number 16. Aita for telling my ex to stop calling me in the middle of the night for non-emergencies with the baby. I, 19M, have a 10-month-old son with my ex-girlfriend, 20F. We broke up shortly after our son was born but have been trying to co-parent as best as we can. I have my son for 3 days out of the week, while my ex has him the rest of the time because I work full-time to support myself and pay child support. The issue is, my ex has been calling me almost every night, claiming there's some sort of emergency with the baby. At first, I would answer immediately and even drive over to her place if she sounded panicked. But after a few weeks, I started noticing a pattern. None of these emergencies were actually serious. One time she called me at 2 a.m. because the baby was crying, and she didn't know what to do. Another time, it was because she ran out of formula, even though I had bought her a bulk supply the week before. Most recently, she called me because he had a mild fever, but when I suggested she give him infant Tylenol, she said she didn't have any and expected me to bring some over immediately. I'm exhausted. I wake up at 4 in the morning every day after the last call. I told her she needed to stop calling me in the middle of the night unless it's a real emergency. I said if she felt overwhelmed, she could call her mom or take him to the doctor, but she couldn't keep relying on me to drop everything. She blew up at me, saying I was being selfish and that as the father, I should always be there for our son. She accused me of not caring about her struggles as a single mom and claimed I was making her feel unsupported. I told her I would always be there for our son in a genuine emergency, but she needs to learn how to handle the day-to-day stuff on her own. Now she's been cold and distant, and some mutual friends think I was out of line for telling her to stop calling, saying I don't understand how hard it is to raise a baby full-time. So, Aita for setting this boundary. Stories number 17. Aita for staying with my husband after he cheated but only because I want to slowly ruin his life as well as his coworker that he cheated on me with. So backstory: married 15 years, 6 kids together, Brady Bunch style, his, mine, ours. The youngest is 18, so no need to stay for the kids. I've mostly been a stay-at-home, but I've gone through school on and off and I have my MBA but no real job experience, go figure. He's 55. I'm 44. Coworker: he cheated on me with his 24. She's also married with 2 little girls. After I found out, I told him I was going to divorce him and leave. I also texted that girl and told her I was going to show up at her house and tell her husband, which I didn't yet. He told me that he would stop talking to her, beg me to stay for us to work on our marriage, that he loves me, blah blah blah. He's going to counseling. I honestly don't give 2 shits at this point except about myself. I started working on myself using my anger to go to the gym and eat better. I've lost 30 pounds, I'm feeling okay. But here's the conundrum. I have given everything I have to this man, raised his kids, our kids. I was at his beck and call, served him his food when it was dinner time. He didn't have to worry about absolutely anything except going to work and coming home. I took care of everything. He still cheated on me and I can't forgive him. So the longer I thought about it, I decided I'm gonna stay with him, pretend everything's okay, and I'm gonna slowly ruin his life, like he did mine. As for the mistress, I've been laying low for the last few months, not really causing any ruckus about that, but it's just because I'm waiting for the day before her birthday to send an email to her husband with all the screenshots I have of her and my husband's text messages back and forth, as well as audio recordings that I have. I'm also tagging her on Facebook and all of her friends, family and coworkers so they can see the type of person she is as well as my husband. I would tag him, but he doesn't have Facebook, but his whole name will be there, they'll know. Is this too much? Am I the asshole now? Need some input. Her birthday is in 3 weeks, so I'm trying to figure out what I want to do. Stories number 18. In a really happy marriage, and now my wife wants children and I feel a little sick. So my, 35, wife, 32, roughly a week ago dropped she wants to have a child. We've been married around 6 years, generally on the side of 90% no kids since the start, and felt it only got firmer as we went on. So never fully no or yes for either, but both of us expressed we definitely didn't want them at the start and probably wouldn't in the future. Seemed it only got closer to a no as we saw families with children not getting to do things, being restricted, having a joke about a child having a meltdown somewhere that we wouldn't have to deal with that. But possibly adoption later on in life, when we were both really settled, and get a child a little older to line up with that. Or if birth control failed, we may just stay with it. I also had a fair few big medical issues in the last couple of years, all of which could be genetic, which at the time solidified it more for me, I guess, having experienced them. Unsure for her. Around a month ago her sister announced her pregnancy and congrats and everything were given. Questions were aimed at us as we've always received, and we gave the usual answer of no plans of it and that we're both happy as we are. We had a big holiday of a month a few weeks prior and loved being able to do it. Similarly, a friend and his wife had a child around 6 months ago and again over the moon for them, had a hold and hello, but that was about it with the baby. They seem to be doing okay but are also pretty well off financially. Nothing seemed up until a couple of weeks after, when my wife just seemed different and would space out. If I asked what was up I'd get nothing. After talking she said it was just work related and some layoffs happening, but she was safe, just some friends weren't. I took that as the answer, but she still seemed off. Then a week ago I asked what was up and she dropped that she wants to have a child out of the blue. We had a small discussion that she felt it'd be a good time with friends and family, recently getting pregnant, we have both families quite close to us still, money situation is good, etc. Then the fact she's getting older and into the danger zone as such. She doesn't want to regret not having a child. That's the big one to me, and I know my face gave it away. At the time I kind of relented and said I still wasn't 100% but agreed on many points and that we should both think about it some more. Here I am a week later. We've discussed it in passing, looking things up about it all, etc., but no huge in-depth conversation. I fully realize this has to happen and I want it to, but I'm scared to have it. I'm using this as a way to vent and write my thoughts. If people comment, then sure, it'll be things to read and consider. I don't mind children, I can tolerate them, I like babies, and then maybe once they're 10 or so and older, but can't stand toddlers for the most part. I wish I could, but the crying over silly things, the questions, all things I fully realize are natural and part of the development, but it just makes something in my brain just react negatively. Almost any child crying feels like it triggers my flight or fight if I need to leave the room, or I feel angry and upset. It's always been like this and my wife has supported me on it, knowing it's what happens to me. I think I could be a good dad, but I'm not sure. I have fun with kids, but I know I can give them back for the crap parts. One can throw them around and teach them things, and I love the thought of doing that for my own child, one that I will see through the good and the bad raising them. Equally, I know I'm selfish with my time. I like to work out, fish, play video games, etc. My wife knows this and we each have our own hobbies and some we share, that we're fairly devoted to and enjoy doing. I'm undiagnosed ADHD and possibly autistic, maybe the same for my wife. Something I want to check for me, but she's not fussed, no problem. It causes me problems, so I'd love to talk it out or possibly get medicated. Equally then, having a child just adds on to that daily struggle. I generally get crap sleep, just due to not being able to get to sleep and then not being able to wake up. My job is stressful and requires me to be on call occasionally, so I can't fully be there or reliable at those times, something I'd want to be. I can struggle with a simple task or memory and it can make some days utter nightmares, but I get through it because it affects me. It bleeds into the home life with my wife but mostly affects me as a person, I guess. Again, my wife knows this and when it's bad she helps, when it's good I try to pay it back. The big thing I'm scared of is the language, her possibly regretting not having a child and it's getting too late. In theory we have plenty of time, but the other factors like local children of the same age are kind of only for a small period of a couple of months to a year at max. Family and support can also change, not likely but it could. I don't want to relent and say yes just to regret it myself in a year possibly, then again I may be over the moon with it all. Equally with the wording, if I say no or even not yet it feels like it starts a timer, that possibly regret will live in our heads. Mine for depriving her of it, but knowing the only other outcome is not to be together, something I also can't stomach. I'm also still not 100% no children, but it's a decision that I just don't know how to make. There's a little voice saying how great it'd be but a much larger voice saying everything that could go wrong or won't work about it. Perhaps during the conversation my decision will shift. I'm usually a pushover and will relent to avoid conflict. I feel we've both always been of the opinion that unless we're both 100% yes on a child then it's a no, so can only assume something has shifted her side. I need to ask how long has she thought it and if it is a bit impulsive her side with family and friends or age related, or if it's been brewing for a while. I know we have to talk and I have to say all this to her. I just think better putting words down or talking in this way only some strangers know and I can look back on it as needed. All of my family are purely on the side of once we have them I'll love them, the crying and screaming will be fine, I'll get through the lack of sleep and want to give up my time to raise them. So I can't discuss with them as I know the answer, similarly as even most friends are almost anti-no children. It feels better even writing that all out. I still feel like I'm going to be sick and that we need to talk soon, at least to discuss it all. No decision needs to be made, we can read other opinions and books together, share our thoughts. I'm just scared. Stories number 19. Aita for yelling at a mom and her kid to get out of my home. A few months ago, I, 28F, started a new D&D campaign and invited a few friends. One of them, Sarah, asked if her friend, and could join. And is a mom who doesn't get many chances to hang out with adults, so I agreed, even though I knew she might be flaky due to childcare responsibilities. I asked and if she could attend at least the first few sessions to get familiar with the game, and she agreed. She then proceeded to cancel, mostly last minute, every proposed first session for the next 2 months. I told her I'm sorry but if she can't make it to the next proposed session, she won't be in long campaigns, still welcome to join one-shots. She apologized and said she'll make it. She made it. But brought her toddler without asking. As soon as they came the kid needed to use the bathroom. He made a mess since he can't fully use an adult toilet yet. I told and that's fine but asked her to clean it up. This surprised her and she started being a bit on edge. We finally sat down at the table and the kid started running around, looking for things to do. I was a bit stressed out by this. And noticed and put him in her lap. But now the kid was at the table, which was covered in mini figurines, dice, pretty pictures and maps, most being a choking hazard, along with glasses of various drinks. The kid started fussing about wanting to play with them. I was telling and no because it's not safe. She told me he's gentle and doesn't put stuff in his mouth. We bickered while her kid was throwing a tantrum. After the kid knocked over a glass, I loudly asked her to step out into the backyard and calm him down a bit while I make the table safer. She did, visibly embarrassed, and I removed everything except for plain-looking papers, pens and paper cups. I also did my best to calm down as this entire thing stressed me out to hell and back at this point. They came back and things were fine for a minute. That is, until my dog came out of my bedroom to drink water. Now, I don't have many house rules, but I have one that's important. Ignore the dog. They were informed of that before coming over. The kid spotted her and yelled, "Doggy," and put him down, to say hi. He made a full-speed beeline at my dog while making grabbing motions and yelling. I stopped him by stepping out in front of him. He ran into me, fell down and started crying. And started screaming at me. I screamed back, and very swiftly told her to get the F out of my home. Sarah was annoyed and told us it took them an hour and a half to get to me, then went with and since they carpooled. The rest stayed. It was awkward for half an hour or so, but we ended up having fun and they even stayed for the night. I then woke up to the local FB groups and people's Instagram stories calling me a controlling asshole, saying I'm discriminating against various players, being too strict and have a dangerous dog. To add insult to injury, Sarah, who I've been friends with for years, is not speaking to me. So, Aita. Stories number 20. I owe at my son, 15M, for grossing out my daughter, 11F, on purpose. Our son has recently been doing gross stuff to our daughter to get a rise out of her and she really hates it. It started when she gagged when someone passed gas in a small room and he thought it was funny, and now he's periodically tried to fart in her face, hold the doggy bag up to her nose when walking the dog, and huffed in her face in the morning without brushing his teeth, causing her to gag a lot. He thinks it's funny but she really hates it and wants him to stop. He knows this and I've told him this after the first 2 incidents, but he still did it again. He says, I'm not hurting her, it's just a smell, it's funny and she needs to get over it. In response, I told him, next time this happens, I'm going to make you smell something you won't be able to handle. And you're not going to get to stop smelling it just because you hate it or it makes you feel queasy. He asked, what could you make me smell that's so bad? And I said, you don't want to find out, you don't give her any warning when you do these things so you aren't receiving one either. I'm a vet tech though and have more than adequate means to follow through on this. He sort of rolled his eyes and said, whatever, but it did make him stop for a while. Until yesterday morning when he burped in her face again and laughed about it. I simply told him, alright, I'll be carrying out the punishment we discussed. I let my daughter take a mini vacation with my husband to get away from him in the meantime, to a local hotel and water park, while I prepare to administer his punishment. Just need a couple more dogs at work who need expressions. After talking with others about it though, I just wonder if it's too harsh a punishment. My husband fully supports it and so do 3 of my coworkers, but 2 of them say it's too harsh, and that a smell this bad is way disproportionate to burps and farts. I said that everyone has a different tolerance to these things though, and if he repeatedly violates his sisters, then he needs to realize what it's like to be on the flip side of this. I told my husband I was having second thoughts and wondered if it was too harsh of a punishment, but he said, it's not undeserved and you have to follow through on your promise. Stories number 21. Aita for refusing to give up my honeymoon suite for my sister's wedding night. My 29M, wife, 28F, and I got married last year, but due to financial reasons, we postponed our honeymoon until this year. We finally booked a week-long trip at a beautiful resort, and we specifically chose a honeymoon suite with a private balcony and an ocean view. Now, my sister, 25F, just got engaged, and she and her fiancé decided to have a quick wedding at the same resort. Our parents are helping with the costs, so my sister and her fiancé booked a standard room, not the honeymoon suite. A few weeks before our trip, my mom called me and said it would be so special if my wife and I switched rooms with my sister and her fiancé for just one night so they could have a real honeymoon experience on their wedding night. I said no because my wife and I planned this trip for a long time, and we paid extra for the honeymoon suite. Now, my mom and sister are calling me selfish, saying that I should understand how important a wedding night is, and that I already had my wedding a year ago. My dad thinks I should just do it to keep the peace, but my wife is firmly on my side. Aita for refusing to give up my honeymoon suite for one night. Short edit, I went no contact with my sister and mother. Stories number 22. Aita for starting a house project without discussing it with my wife. My wife, Amy, 27F, and I, 27M, have a spare room in our home. We've gone back and forth since we moved in 2+ years ago about what we wanted to do with it, but we never took the initiative to actually implement any of these plans. We already have a sufficient number of guest rooms and an office, so the room just sits there, unutilized. I'm not that worried about it, but my wife brings it up now and then. These mentions are just of the unused room itself, not anything concrete she actually wants to use it for. I made a new friend, Ben, 30M, about 8 months ago, and it was very much one of those, we connected from the first time we spoke to each other situations. I've actually never had that many close male friends, so this connection is especially important to me. The conversation flowed so easily, we had loads in common. I didn't think such a huge amount of genuine love and respect for a person could be developed in less than a year, but it's been very cool to experience that and get to know him. One of the things that we bonded over was a similar love for art and music. Ben is way more talented than I am when it comes to painting, but it's something we both enjoy. His birthday is coming up soon and I thought on top of what else I was getting him, I could turn the spare room into something similar to an art studio for us both to use. I already ordered a few things for it and was getting ready to jump into painting the walls when my wife came in and demanded to know what I was doing. I explained that I was finally fixing up the spare room. She said it was unacceptable I had done this without confirming with her that it was okay, but I didn't think I would need to since it's been 2 years and the room has basically never been touched. Consensus, asshole people point out it seems he wants to spend time with Ben instead of Amy. Notable comments. Commenter 1. His birthday is coming up soon and I thought on top of what else I was getting him, I could turn the spare room into something similar to an art studio. What else are you getting him for his birthday, OP, is what I want to know. Commenter 2. I would bet money them not being able to find a use for the room is because wife was thinking, nursery, while her husband's thinking, man cave for my best friend that doesn't even live at this house. Commenter 3. Look, I'm just going to throw it out there because I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one thinking it. The way you talk about this relationship with Ben versus your wife makes it sound like he's more than just a friend. Maybe it's on a subconscious level only. You don't unilaterally decide what to do with a room in a house you share with your wife. It's weird that your first thought is, oh, I want to set up this space for me and the friend. It's weird that you view this as some kind of gift to the friend, on top of whatever else you've gotten him. It's weird you want to give a key to the house you share with your wife to the friend without asking her. Commenter 3. Am I the only one that this guy is in love with his friend? But either way, YTA. Comments by OOP. I didn't think it was all that strange to give friends the spare keys to your place, to be fair. My wife gave her spare to my MIL, I believe. And that didn't happen with any discussions between us. We host guests very regularly, so this wouldn't be much different of a situation than the one we're already in. I don't value anyone more than my wife. I just think this kind of connection is vital and irreplaceable. I wanted to express that. I haven't thought about any boundaries just yet because I very much trust Ben to not do something stupid, like take drugs in my house without asking first, inviting others over, etc. I'm definitely taking in everyone's points of view about the room, but pumping the brakes on the friendship as a whole isn't something I can do right now, I don't think. I mean, the entire house is basically a lifelong birthday gift to my wife. He and my wife have met and he's been invited to all events we've hosted. I wanted to generally make the space a little cozier and homier. He and I both like collecting records, so I was going to get another record player to put in the corner for when both of us were working. Paint the walls plus get a rug, some furniture. We didn't mind getting a little messy. I know this guy well and trust him. I would never put myself or my wife in danger, especially not so willingly like this. About what he got his wife for her last birthday, I got a purse for her that she'd been wanting and took her to dinner. She also went on a girls' trip to celebrate. Birthdays have never been a huge thing between us. It's all about the traditions you start with different people. He and I have already talked about all of this. I don't feel like I'm buying his friendship or trying to secure his affections, I'm just doing something kind for someone who is important to me. I've always been a bit of a grand gesture sort of man anyway. About Ben potentially being a danger for Amy, I definitely wasn't expecting all the comments about him possibly doing something like this. Wow, he isn't interested in women. She has never brought up any issues with him. This is purely about the room. Other friends of ours love him. If he has a key for Ben's place, I've had to drop things off at his place while he's at work and it was much more convenient than him having to remember to leave a key for me on those days. What else he got Ben for his birthday? I got him some vinyl records and nice pair of shoes he had been eyeing. None of these concerns have been raised to me. We're very open and I trust that he would bring it up to me if he felt uncomfortable. He was excited by the prospect. No excessive gifts or interest in just my life. He freely shares. We typically spend the day together if we have one that aligns throughout the week and text freely otherwise. He's always been gracious and understanding when it comes to my schedule not being super flexible. There's no expectation of me to reply to his texts within a certain amount of time. OOP admitting he is questioning his sexuality, but commented otherwise, because I don't want to listen to people saying they feel sorry for my wife because I'm questioning intimate details of my identity. Questioning people aren't inconveniences. Or whatever this line of thinking is leading people to believe. About who OOP would choose if his wife gave an ultimatum. If an ultimatum was given right now, I would respect my wife's wishes. However, I do think it would make me feel how you're describing. He's become an integral part of my life and the bond we have isn't like anything I've ever had. It would be devastating to lose. He's handsome, strong, ridiculously talented and funny, passionate, he's an amazing friend. If someone was into guys, I'd imagine he would be easy to fall for. If Ben ever made a comment about wanting to date OOP, it has come up previously in a joking, teasing way. Like if we went shopping together, I tried on something and came out to show him, he might make a silly, if only you weren't taken, comment. Don't apologize for rambling, this is so helpful. There were so many lines you wrote where I felt like I could truly see myself. It was mind-blowing, and suddenly everything made sense. Love songs weren't exaggerated. People weren't lying. I wasn't broken. I understand poetry now. This feels so apartment. There's a song that released recently that I've had on repeat for the last few days with the lyrics, I'd go too far just to have you near in my soul, I've got this feeling I didn't know until I seen you. And when I heard the line, as well as the entire first verse, honestly, I was genuinely blown away at how fitting it is. I'm taking everyone's advice into consideration and will be having conversations with them both soon. I just don't know how to go about that yet. ETA, I hope you don't mind another self-indulgent lyric thrown at you. Another beautiful line I feel like is worth mentioning because it keeps replaying in my head is, you showed me what love is, now I'm acting like I know myself. Update. First off, I'd like to thank everyone who was compassionate towards me in the comments. Ben and I sat down and talked on Tuesday night about everything. It was overwhelming, to say the least. He was gentle and sweet, as always, and allowed me the time and space to say everything I needed to. That night was one of the most beautiful of my life. Acceptance, love, and trust are truly so powerful. Life-changing. Amy and I had a conversation about the spare room last night. I had been putting it off since my post a few days ago and was hoping to wait until the weekend to talk about it all, but she insisted. I did as a lot of comments suggested and used the renovation as a lead-in to talk about the other things going on. I told her that her reaction to it brought up a lot of confusing emotions for me that I've spent the last few days working through, and things continued from there. I had toyed with the idea of couples therapy and it was something she suggested, but I don't think it's a viable option. I love her, but I've come to realize that I was never in love with her like I once thought. And after getting to really and truly experience that, it wouldn't be fair to either of us if we tried to force something that I'm not capable of giving to her. I'll be splitting my time, staying in one of our guest rooms with Ben in his apartment for the time being while we separate and work things out moving forward. Obviously that means the room renovations have been paused until further notice. I'm really excited for the future. ETA, clarification on my current living situation. Consensus, still the asshole. Notable comments. Commenter 1. So you cheated on your wife with an emotional affair, blamed her for your decisions with the whole, your reaction made me confused, bit, and now you're leaving her to go with your affair partner. Doesn't matter if it wasn't physical. This is an obvious emotional affair. Ben and I sat down and talked on Tuesday night about everything. It was overwhelming, to say the least. He was gentle and sweet, as always, and allowed me the time and space to say everything I needed to. That night was one of the most beautiful of my life. Acceptance, love, and trust are truly so powerful. Commenter 2. Emotional affair. I'm really excited for the future. Oh yeah, so exciting to completely destroy the life of the person that loved and supported you while you skip off to have your fun. So exciting. Poor Amy. She deserves so much better. You do plan on letting her have most of the assets in the divorce since you were the one unfaithful and wrecked the marriage, right? Commenter 3. And poor Amy thought she only had to worry about a spare room being used without her permission. Commenter 4. This. My heart broke a little for her. I bet she is thinking that if she hadn't gotten upset about the room maybe her husband would still love her and be with her. I hope Amy reads these posts to see how much the rest of us wish her the best out of a horrible situation. Commenter 5. Dude, I am all for living life as your authentic self, but this euphoria you obviously feel after breaking out of your ill-conceived art room closet doesn't absolve you of being an asshole. Celebrating the evolution of your emotional affair into a full-blown one while your marriage is collapsing around you is an incredibly poor taste and shows an astounding lack of empathy and compassion for your soon-to-be ex-wife. The reality is that you did try to move Ben into your marital home when you decided to repurpose a spare bedroom into a music room art studio love nest, so it's not much of a stretch to believe you would do it now for real. I get that you misspoke or unclear retracted the statement, but you can't honestly be surprised that people think the worst of you when you put it on display yourself. Amy has been at best an afterthought through this entire ordeal and that is just sad. I feel so sorry for her and hope that you grow a conscience in time to make up for your lack of emotional generosity by giving her everything she wants in the divorce. Commenter 6. The fact that you sat Ben down to talk about things you and him already knew, since you know, you've been having an emotional affair, days before you talked to your wife speaks volumes about your character. You were even forced by your wife to have that talk with her. She deserved the first conversation. She was your wife. Your affair partner should have been put on the back burner for 5 minutes while you figured this out with her. Had your life-altering night with your boyfriend while your wife is still wondering about your spare room. Days later the poor girl thought she was going to have a conversation about it and instead you blew up her life and give absolutely no remorse about how you went about things, aka cheating on your wife. Commenter 7. Good on you for figuring yourself out, but you are like at bottom of the barrel of humans at this point. He was gonna wait until this weekend to talk to her about it. Not gonna claim I was the reason he changed his mind but I badgered him pretty consistently about it in his now deleted post because he was apparently set on trickle-truthing her instead of ripping the band-aid off. Commenter 8. I think it might have been better received because I clarified that I'm a lesbian and wasn't coming at the situation from a homophobic standpoint, but Jesus Christ. This man. Commenter 9. I am too invested. What was the gist of his post? Commenter 10. Basically that it would give her time to come to terms with their separation, by letting her believe he's bi, and then telling her he's gay after, because it would let her down easier or something. I relatively politely tore him a new one over that. Comments by OOP, I feel like the way everyone is talking about him is doing a disservice to his character. Devaluing the support I've been given during a really hard, scary time of my life and calling it cheating on his end, regardless of what you think I'm doing, or implying that he'll do the same outside of a situation with extenuating circumstances just isn't cool. You can think I'm vile, but he's a good guy. To clarify, I didn't move Ben into my home. I meant that I'm now sometimes staying in a guest room at my own home, so Amy and I aren't sleeping in the same bed, and sometimes staying at Ben's while we get through this transitional period. No infidelity would be occurring, my wife and I are separating. This decision wasn't made lightly, or solely based on my best friend. This was largely due to the fact that I've realized I can't connect with women on the same level I do with men. I'm currently looking for a place of my own to stay for the time being. I don't expect my friend to house me full-time on such short notice. We haven't began discussing how we're splitting assets yet. I don't think she's particularly interested in keeping the house, or if that's an option for her. Don't know if I'm fully prepared to confront this yet. While I subconsciously knew my feelings for Ben were a lot different and more intense than anything I had ever felt before, it was hard to even admit that to myself a little while ago. That's why all of the sexuality questions on the last post felt off to me, it was forcing me to be vulnerable. They also made me angry, in a way. Because literal strangers were pointing out things about me from a simple post, few comments that I struggled to see about myself. In an attempt to answer your question, if this isn't what in love feels like, I'm kind of scared to experience the real thing with how all-consuming this level of fulfillment already is. The level of care and overwhelming support I've received all throughout our friendship, but especially since we had our conversation, certainly makes me feel loved. That he didn't think people would pick up on him being in love with Ben in his first posting, I don't think people would see it unless they've experienced thinking they were straight and realizing otherwise, having a friend go through that and offering support. I didn't even know I was attracted to men until very recently, so the emotional affair comments continue to confuse me. Sigh. I obviously thought I loved her at the time. Because I thought I was straight. I would imagine anyone would be confused if they had never experienced real attraction. I'm very empathetic to what she's going through. She and I already talked, as I mentioned, and she's fine with me staying in the house until I find an apartment for the time being while we discuss things. I'm doing everything I can to make this as easy for her as possible. I don't disagree. The bond I allowed to develop was wrong, in hindsight. But I was doing the best I could with the information I had at the time. I'm allowing past me grace considering I didn't fully comprehend what was happening. He's supportive of me finding myself and exploring facets of my identity I didn't previously recognize. I left for myself and to be fair to my partner. Not for him. Idolizing an important male friendship in my life, of which I'd had very few, made much more sense to me. Stories number 23. Tofu by using dishwashing liquid for washing vegetables. It's dangerous. Last year I was in the ICU for almost a month and nearly died from leptospirosis, which I contracted from the pet rats I used to have, so stupid me, and my trauma has been washing vegetables with dishwashing liquid. Last night some got inside the vegetables used for my shakshuka, and I ended up in the bathroom trying to vomit but unable to, with a stomach ache from the depths of Hades, and was ready to call 911. Thankfully it passed relatively quickly because there were residues in the vegetables after they were rinsed, but even those can cause havoc in the body. And stupid me also didn't research the proper way to clean veggies, and thought that it would help in at least removing bacteria. Turns out it doesn't do fucking shit, and I almost ended up in the ER. Just sharing my story and hoping that it will serve as a word of caution for anyone who does such foolishness. Rinsing the vegetables with fresh water or using a special vegetable cleaning solution is enough. TLDR, washing vegetables with dishwashing liquid almost landed me in the ER. Stories number 24. My buddy and his wife got CPS called on them and I refused to help them clean their house. So my buddy and his wife have a very unhealthy little boy. He was born at just 27 weeks gestation and it was not clear what the cause of early birth was. I at the same time was about 28 weeks pregnant, and have been doing everything I possibly could do for them while managing my life, my husband's life, and our 2 large dogs. They had to fly about 6.5 hours south to a NICU that could accommodate such a young baby, and I really wanted to be there for her but couldn't go due to my own complications. Now my child was born on time in November 2024 and their son was born in August of 2024. He's about 6 months old but still in a very hard place in life. He doesn't gain weight. The doctors have run every test and since being released from the NICU has been to the hospital for week-long stays at least 5 times. This being said, the last time he wound up in the hospital the doctor told them that she would have to resort to calling Child Protective Services on them if they were discharged, and he lost weight again. He's one of the rare cases where he has got TOB fed every 3 hours on the DOT. His parents refuse to wake up in the middle of the night to do feeds and wonder why he's losing the weight. They are both young parents, so I understand the struggle as someone who also has a newborn child and 2 dogs. The problem they have is no matter how many times I've gone over to clean, they A, don't keep it clean, B, have yet to potty train their dogs, 5 and 3 years old. They recently had an appointment and CPS was in fact called and they asked me to come clean again, but I do not wish for anyone to have their child taken away, but I'm at my wit's end with trying to help them and them just taking it for granted. I have provided them with ample opportunities and resources, but they just can't see how big of a shit show it could get for them if when CPS shows up that there's fecal matter on their floor and the house is completely and utterly destroyed. The DR is claiming abuse on the baby because he does in fact look very malnourished. Also, the wife is a stay-at-home mom who doesn't have a car and nothing better to do than look after the baby, dogs, and the house. So Aita for not stepping in again. Update: he just called again pressuring me and my husband both to come over and clean. My husband laid into him for not having his shit together, so TBH I don't know what'll become of our friendship in the future, but right now I'm just hoping it turns out well for the baby in the end. Does anyone have prior experience with CPS and how they handle these situations? Also, I forgot to mention, but the dog that is 3 years old is extremely aggressive and probably won't even let the CPS worker in the house. I'm not sure how to tell them that they should think of the baby more than the dog that gets along with absolutely nobody. Edit: me and my husband really haven't had much time to spend over at their house in recent days as we are also dealing with a newborn, but had I known it had gotten this bad before the doctor called CPS we would have made the call. We are stuck between not wanting to be in the middle of it and always being dragged in by the baby's parents. We ask how they're doing and they always say fine, but I do always make sure the baby has everything he needs and even offer to cover the night shift with him as his feeds correspond with my own child's. They never take me and my husband up on the offer. Stories number 25. Aita for refusing to give up my bedroom for my niece and nephew. I, 19F, still live at home with my parents while I attend college. I pay for my own tuition and contribute to household expenses when I can, but since my school is local, living at home saves me a ton of money. Recently, my older sister, 27F, and her 2 kids, 5M and 3F, moved back in after her divorce. She's struggling financially, and my parents are letting her stay here rent-free until she gets back on her feet. I get that it's a tough situation, and I've been helping out with the kids when I can. The issue is that my parents want me to give up my bedroom so my sister's kids can have their own space. We have a small house, and my sister is already taking the guest room, so the kids are currently sleeping with her. My parents think it would be better for them to have their own room and are asking me to move to the couch or make do by squeezing into their office space. I said no. I've lived here my whole life, and this is still my home. I need my own space, especially since I have a heavy college workload. I don't see why I should be the one to sacrifice my room when this situation isn't my fault. My sister is upset, saying her kids are uncomfortable, and my parents are disappointed in me for not being more understanding. Now the whole house is tense, and I'm wondering if I'm being selfish. Stories number 26. Aita for not making the truth sound nicer in family therapy and standing by what I said. My mom died when I, 17M, was 4. My dad sent me to live with his parents immediately after. He said couldn't cope without mom and wanted me to have a stable life. I still saw him and stuff, but he wasn't raising me. That was left to my grandparents. They encouraged him to see me as much as he could and he'd try to swing by at least once a week, but that didn't always happen. It was really awkward and I remember being kinda sad about it for a year or more. Then it just became my new normal. When I was 8 my dad announced he was moving and wasn't sure when he'd come back. I didn't see him for more than 2 years and when he moved back he wanted me back. I was 10 by then. He was a stranger to me then too, so I didn't want to live with him and my grandparents didn't want me to be taken back like that. Dad told them it was fine and he met someone and we'd all move in together in a few months. They said it was even more of a reason for me to stay because I wouldn't adjust well to random people coming in and living with me. He said they're not random, I was about to have a new mom and brother. They wanted to know if he had a kid with someone and he said no. His fiancée had a kid already but he was going to raise him as his own. My dad started a court battle with my grandparents when his wife moved to town to live with him, but they weren't married at the time. Dad said he'd been patient but he didn't like that they were keeping me from him. I told him I didn't want to live with him but he ignored me when I said it. And after months of fighting in court and me talking to people from the court my dad won. It took almost a year though and I was almost 12 by then. But I was forced to live with him and his wife and her son and their baby they just had. My dad was acting like I had never lived apart from him and his wife acted like she was my mom. She'd tell me what to do: you need to play more sports, spend less time with these friends because I don't like them, spend time with your brother, and expect me to help out around the house and help her specifically. She said it was good for us to make up for all the time we lost. So I'd have to sit with her while she cooked and stuff and she'd give me consequences for having an attitude about it, and whenever I told her she wasn't my mom she would give even more consequences. I had stopped calling my dad years before he took custody of me back, and that was something he tried to change when I moved in with them. He'd tell me I had a mom and a dad and a brother and a sister, and using names and not acknowledging the family relationships were wrong. I told him they weren't really my family, and he spent time telling me they were and why I needed to be more open-minded about it. I never called him dad again, and I'm only doing it here for the sake of the post. I never called his wife mom or the kids my siblings. I never wanted to be a part of their family, and it started to impact my grades. My grandparents used that and some other stuff when I was 15 to fight for custody again. They were denied originally, but then it became a bigger fight. I had to speak to a therapist, someone from the court system, a GAL and a children's advocate person, not the GAL but someone else, and after a lot of discussing what was the best thing for me and figuring out other stuff, as well as me studying up on how to speak more maturely so I could get a judge to listen to me, the judge let me go back to my grandparents but ordered that I take part in family therapy with my dad until I turn 18. That was almost a year ago, and I was 16 when that happened. I don't really take the therapy sessions seriously, and I take them less serious after Dad went back to court to ask for his wife to be included in the sessions, which the judge allowed. So now I have to see both of them once a week for an hour. I don't say anything in therapy usually. I don't like the therapist and I have my own, so I don't need them for anything. But a few weeks ago I did speak up because the therapist told me everyone needed to be honest at least once, and that I might as well say whatever it was that goes through my head. So I stopped wanting him back and wanting to live with him when I was about 6 or 7, and that I stopped wanting to be a part of his family again. I said he wasn't a good dad, and just because he tried, but only when his wife came into his life, it didn't mean I was okay with that. And I said the whole thing of having a new mom and brother was wrong because my mom died and some strange pushy lady he met somewhere wasn't going to take her place just because she wanted some perfect family image. I said they tore me away from my home and the parents who raised me so they could play at being good people. I said a stranger told me who I could and couldn't be friends with and what kinds of hobbies I should have. I said I was punished for saying she wasn't my mom when she wasn't. I said they had brought up their kids hurting and missing me, and I said it was their fault because Dad ignored me when I said I didn't want to live with them. I said I wasn't ever going to want a relationship with their kids because to me blood doesn't make us siblings, it makes us related, and the same with one being raised by my dad, it makes us sorta related but not family, not siblings, and the more they keep expecting that to change the more they hurt their kids. My dad really didn't see what I said coming. His wife didn't look surprised but more offended that I basically said she was nothing but a stranger to me when she was trying to play mommy. I got shit from them and the therapist for not making the truth kinder. The therapist said I can clearly speak with maturity in court, so being nicer about the truth would have been far better. After that I stopped speaking again, but it has come up since then. Stories number 27. Aita for refusing to drive if my wife is in the car. For years, after we got married, I could never figure out why I would be so angry and moody anytime my wife and I went somewhere. Then it finally clicked. I was only in a bad mood if I drove with my wife. My wife is the absolute worst backseat driver I have ever seen. Doesn't matter how I drive, she still finds things to complain about. Why did you go this way? If you would have went that way we would be there by now. You're driving too fast. You're driving too slow. You could have made that light unfucking real. That light was red and you blew through it. Can you brake any harder, idiot? There were 17 great parking spots and you had to choose parking spot 18, which is the absolute worst. You turned your blinker on too late. You turned your blinker on too early. Why are you accelerating so slowly? Whoa. Was it necessary to accelerate that quickly? Etc. So for the past couple of years, I have refused to drive. I now make her do all the driving. And lo and behold, I'm no longer a grumpy person when we travel. She has now gotten upset that she now is always driving and told me I needed to at least split driving 50-50 with her. I told her if she could keep her opinions to herself while I was driving then I would. She agreed. So last weekend I started driving. She couldn't even last 3 minutes without criticizing my driving. I pulled over and told her I'm done. Either she takes over driving or we're going home. She eventually took the wheel. As she muttered that I drive like a moron even though there's only one of us who has any tickets and has at-fault accidents on their record, and it's not me. So Aita for refusing to drive if she's present. Stories number 28. My boss asked me to come in early and I pretended not to see it. I work a retail job and the past 4 shifts I've worked, we have had callouts from different people and I have been working extra hard and staying late every day because of this. Yesterday I had to open the store and had to stay late again, and I worked for nearly 10 hours. I felt so burnt out mentally and physically after how hard I've been pushing myself. The store opens at 10 a.m., and the opener has to arrive at 9:45 am. Today I was scheduled to come in at 10:15, so I was glad about that. My manager called me after 9 a.m. and I ignored it because I had a gut feeling. Then I received a text from him telling me that I needed to come in to open the store because the person who was supposed to open called out. I ignored it and arrived at my scheduled time of 10:15 a.m. When I walked in, my boss was visibly annoyed and said, "Thanks for coming in." I pretended to be confused and just clocked in and began my usual work. I don't know if what I did was wrong, and I feel kind of bad, but the other part of me is telling myself that what I did was justifiable due to the long hours and extra work I have been made to do because people keep calling out. Stories number 29. I, 18M, have no idea what the right thing to do is. My sister and I have been finding thousands of dollars hidden around the house after my mom died. Hi Reddit. First of all, this is about me, 18M, and my twin sister, 18F. It is also about my dad, and my mom, who recently passed away. I'm not sure how to start this, but I need help in what to do, and what the right thing to do is. My sister and I have no one else to talk to about this, and I'm not sure if telling my dad is a good idea. Also sorry if my sentences are a bit of an unfinished puzzle. To the point, my mom died due to cancer about a month ago. And my dad is terrible with finances. Meaning he is not smart with money, and has been in and out of debt a lot. Well, I used to have a blue flannel that I got at a garage sale with my mom. It also happened to fit my mom, so somehow she started wearing the flannel instead, and I was fine with that. Today, I went to her closet to take back my flannel, and I found $15,000 in cash in each of the two pockets. In total $30,000. I have no idea where this would have come from. I didn't know who to tell, so I told my sister, because I felt like she was the only one who I could tell at the moment. Well, apparently my sister also found money in the pockets of a suit jacket thing. I'm not exactly sure what the item of clothing is called, which was also $30,000 in cash. The clothing item was something that my mom would have given to my sister. My sister has borrowed it all the time for job interviews and college stuff, so she was going to do that again, but this time, found a $30,000 in it. Anyways, both of the clothes that we found were clothes that we would have eventually been given from our mom anyways. My sister and I have kept the money right now, and have not spent it, and we do not plan on spending it, because we have no idea what to do. We feel like if we tell our dad, he will be very possibly stupid with it. For context, my dad is in his 60s, and has no retirement saved up, and is an alcoholic. He has been in giant credit card debt multiple times, and has used those, what they're called, things that if you qualify, your credit card debt gets paid off. Those plans. When I was in middle school, he was in like $20,000 of credit card debit but under a different name. Anyways, my sister and I feel like my mom would have put that money in those specific spots for a reason. Still, have no clue where the money came from, and we don't know anyone that we could tell this to without our dad finding out. So Reddit, what should we do, and are we doing the right or wrong thing? I'm incredibly confused and have no idea what the heck to do about this. I feel like I shouldn't tell my dad, but I also feel like I'm doing the wrong thing. Edit. Also my grandma was helping clean out the house today, and apparently she found $5,000 in an envelope between my mom's bed and the bed frame. My dad took that. Edit 2. I've read several of the comments, and I think I agree. I wasn't sure before this, but it kinda makes sense now. Thank you. Right now, I will hold on to it safely, and I think I will use it for college when I get there. Thank you for all the kindness and advice. Stories number 30. Aita for wanting my wife to respect my son's privacy. My son, 17, has been streaming for about 2 years now. He actually makes decent money on Kick and TikTok, enough that we agreed he can delay college for a year to see if this becomes a viable career. The problem is my wife constantly barges into his room during streams. Sometimes to ask random questions, sometimes to bring him food, which he appreciates but not on camera, and occasionally just to chat with his viewers, beyond embarrassing. I've tried explaining that interruptions mess with his audience retention and that this is basically his job, but she says, it's still our house, and I'm just being a mother. Last week, he lost a sponsorship opportunity when she walked in during a tryout stream and started asking about his laundry. He was devastated, and I got angry with my wife. Now she's saying I'm choosing his internet hobby over our marriage. I don't think it's unreasonable to knock or text him instead of bursting in, but she thinks I'm being ridiculous. We've argued about this 3 times this week. So Reddit, Aita for insisting my wife respects the boundaries of my son's streaming career. Stories number 31. Aita for asking my dad to take care of me and my brother after our mother passed away. I, 17 and my brother, 15, live alone with my dad after my mom passed from cancer 5 months ago. I have struggled with my mental health since before that and require some assistance with everyday life. Recently, my dad got in a relationship with my mom's former best friend and he has been spending increasingly more time with her and away from home. Dad is almost never home, doesn't cook, and my brother and I take care of cleaning and laundry, though our grandparents help sometimes. There's barely any food at home besides frozen pizza and I often lack the energy to cook myself or provide for my brother, who is vegan and often insists he can't take care of everything, but since he is 15 and still in school I can't help but worry. My dad says that he doesn't want to be home with my brother and I don't want to spend much time with him because he doesn't want to be lonely. He also says that he wants to be there for his new partner since she also struggles with her mental health. So today I confronted him, asking him to cook or spend evenings at home at least twice a week or so. He responded with saying there's nothing for him to do at home. Now I am conflicted because I told him that when he decided to raise my brother and I, he made himself responsible for us and should take care of at least my brother, to which he said that it isn't his job to stay home and be lonely just so a parent is in the house. We argued and got increasingly frustrated until I left. I now somehow feel like an ass for telling him what he can and can't do with his partner and asking him to be lonely here, while also still believing I'm not completely wrong in this. Am I being too disrespectful? Stories number 32. Aita for refusing to let it slide after my wife said I run a hobby business. I've been running a trades business in a major city. It's going into its 5th year, we have 8 to 12 employees, have won awards and grown every year. The conflict: I called me wife to ask her about a paperwork problem for taxes, turned out we needed the completed 2024 for something we hadn't yet filed. She said it would give her a panic attack and she'd faint if I said she had to. I found her docs on my desk in the morning, figured I would try to fit them in during the day but couldn't. So as I was figuring out the plan for the evening time-wise, 2 kids, lots to do, I called and asked when she wanted me to do it. I meant that evening, would she prefer I work late and come back at a certain time to take over for the rest? Come home, do bath and dinner and then do it? None of the above. She got very angry and said I was asking her to figure out my life for me. I tried to clarify that I wasn't, and what I meant, that I hadn't had a chance to do it as I only had the files in the morning, and she yelled at me and told me I always had some excuse because of my hobby business. I didn't yell back, I just say, that was way over the line. Totally unnecessary and inappropriate. I said that I put everything into building the business to help and support our family, and I couldn't believe how she could dismiss me and everything. That it felt like she was calling me a loser and a failure. She angrily responded that she just called it a hobby and I was entitled to think what I want, but I was a fucking liar for saying that. She was implying a lot more than just one word. She said she was just expressing frustration and I said, well no, you insulted me and you knew how much it would hurt, that was the point. She didn't argue, just said she was entitled to express her frustration and it wasn't her job to manage my feelings about what she said. Context about this: my business is in its 5th year. I won't say it's been easy. It's been the hardest thing I ever did in my life. I, 38M, had a desk job and was quite successful in one sector, but the low pay, heavy hours, and dependency on grants and funding was heavy. I couldn't imagine doing it another 40 years, so I went looking for new careers. I applied to things I was overqualified for. I applied to things I was qualified for. I applied to things that, you'd think, anyone could get. Crickets. It is hard to change careers. Then I found the skilled trades. I had to go back to school and get fit in one fell swoop, but I did it and toughed it out in some high production companies. Eventually, a friend of mine at one and I decided to start our own. We saw many problems in our industry, for employees, for clients, for owners, and opportunity in the market. It's been a wild ride. Everything was progress well until a fire destroyed our service trucks in year 3. In year 4, my wife had a second child and experienced severe PPD, which resulted in numerous hospitalizations and rage directed at me that was highly destabilizing. The worst happened almost a year to the day of the fires, which we hadn't yet climbed out of. It is March 2025, but it feels like February 2024 to me. The bad year just never ended, as the buildup of critical business stuff that needs to address is haunting. It took us 6 months to replace the trucks after the fire, but keep running somehow, and we still were dealing with early years growth pains. I thought the next year would be tough but stable. It was not, it was worse. The worst year of my life, and I've had some rough ones before all this. My wife has worked for us and helped, not because it was desperately needed but because she couldn't get another job. It allowed her to take a year off for both our kids and stay home. I pay 75% of expenses, and the situation places extreme stress on me, as if I falter or revenue is low there is nothing else coming in. On the other hand, she works from home and has flexible hours and both kids are in daycare full time. When I am home late or need to work more for the money business to survive first 5 she complains I'm not home. When I'm home she complains about money things. I'm a pretty stoic person in terms of being screamed at, but this was just beyond. I wish many things were different, but to call my work a hobby when it's the only support for our family and important to me, she sees no problem. I feel pointedly degraded. Stories number 33. I splurged and bought me something after my wife told me no. I, 38M, and my wife, 35M, I'll just call her Kelly, have been together 9 years, married for 5, and we have 2 kids. Recently I've been getting into sim racing, mainly Assetto Corsa. For some context, I am a long-distance trucker working 50-plus-hour weeks making around $170,000 a year. I'm usually home on Sundays, but that's not always the case. When I am home I usually try to do something with the family, but since I've found this new hobby I've been spending more time there. Kelly hasn't liked it as I am not home much, so when I am she wants family time, perfectly understandable. Yet since I can't race while working, I really don't have any time except for when I'm home. Within the last year she has wanted a hot tub and a new car. I've bought her both since money's not an issue and they would be nice. So about 2 weeks ago I brought up the idea that since no one ever rides with me in my truck, I could install a sim rig in the passenger seat. I've seen it done before and thought it would be the best of both worlds, as I could race when not driving and when home we could have family time. She immediately shot down the idea, saying it's just gonna be a huge waste of money. So without her knowing I took off last Monday and Tuesday to have my friend who builds custom sim rigs build one into my passenger seat. After everything was done and bought, rig, PC, shifter, monitors, ECT, it came to be around $3,700, nothing compared to what went into her $5,000 hot tub and $39,000 car. Everything is collapsible so I can see while driving, so it is not a driving hazard and doesn't affect her at all. When I came home this Sunday and she saw it, she went ballistic, cussing me out and left me to walk home. I parked my truck at my shop. Kelly comes to pick me up and drives me home. So after a 40-minute walk I made it home to see she took the kids to her mother's and wanted to talk about making smart financial decisions. This made me mad as we have a large savings account and emergency fund, so what's wrong with me spending my hard-earned money to splurge a bit on myself? She is a stay-at-home mom and it has been that way since we've met. I do all I can to make sure she has everything she needs and is happy, but I can't have a sim rig to relax and have some fun with the boys. Am I the asshole? Stories number 34. Aita for calling my husband little dick. I am 11 weeks postpartum from my second baby and 21 months postpartum from my first. So I have gained almost 100 pounds after both pregnancies and trying to lose the weight, but it's hard adjusting to my new metabolism, as before pregnancy I could eat whatever whenever and barely affect my weight at 145. My husband thinks making fun of my weight constantly and making harsh remarks. Like if I say if he could move over as we have a small kitchen, he reply, of course you need the kitchen, and I actually just got him to stop calling me Shamu, yes, like the whale from Sea World, after breaking down because it obviously affected my self-esteem, as I'm not blind and can see I gained a crazy amount of weight after my pregnancies. He hasn't stopped making jokes, and to be honest he makes these jokes about everything out my expensive, but it's okay apparently because it's just a joke, even though he's clearly the only one who thinks it's funny. So I thought, okay, since we're making jokes that clearly aren't funny, I'll just start calling him little dick, and yup, as you suspected, he did not find it funny and actually shut down and shut me out. I genuinely don't care, but am I wrong? I know 2 wrongs don't make a right, but after 2 years almost of making fun of my weight constantly I genuinely am fed up. So Aita for calling my husband little dick. Stories number 35. Saleswoman called 183 times in a month and won't stop calling. How can I make her stop? I have 183 voicemails from Jennifer from Debt Relief Solutions over the last couple months. It went on for longer, but I stopped counting after that. I have called back and asked to be in the do not call list. They said I was added, but nothing came of it. I called again. I have stressed how they keep calling every few hours and asked for it to be escalated, stating in no uncertain terms that I have no desire to do business to them and they need to stop. During the last call I explained they called 183 times and need to stop, and instead of apologizing they just keep trying to sell, saying things like, we are just trying to see if you qualify. When I keep repeating, 183 calls is unacceptable, you need to stop. I don't want excuses, I wanted to stop, and then they just reply with a stronger sales pitch about how they are trying to help me. I tried to block them, but now they are using burner numbers and it's a new phone area code each time, so blocking the number doesn't stop. And the message is exactly the same recording each time. At what point does this become harassment? How do I legally make them leave me alone, since I have no desire to do business with them and my only interactions with them is demanding they stop calling? Sigh. 184 times now. They called again when I was typing this. Stories number 36. My FIL, 69M, gave my 4-month-old, 0F, a line with tequila on it. My boyfriend, our 4-month-old baby, and I went to dinner with my boyfriend's dad and brother tonight. His dad rarely ever shows our daughter attention, and when he does it's a phone in front of her face video recording her saying, hey buddy. Say grandpa asterisk insert his name. Also pretty much every time he sees her he says, your first words are going to be grandpa his name, instead of grandpa my dad's name. Like that literally is the extent of the interaction he has had with her. Once the camera is off, he pays no attention to her really. During dinner he put margarita in her straw and pretended like he was going to give it to her. He didn't, but I was already annoyed because I just don't really see how acting like you're giving alcohol to a baby is funny. Towards the end of dinner he asked to hold her so my boyfriend and I could finish our meals, and so we handed her to him. I was talking to my significant other's brother, then looked back over and I could see him taking the lime out of his margarita. My partner and I agreed that we speak to our own families about boundaries, so I nudged him under the table and he said, "Dad, stop," as his dad proceeded to put the tequila lime in my 4-month-old daughter's mouth. He says, "Dad, stop," again, and he stops. 2 seconds later he does it again. I nudge my boyfriend even harder and he reaches across the table and takes the lime out of his hand and says in a stern voice, "I said stop. Our daughter still only has milk, nothing else." He asks me every time I see him if she can eat yet, and I tell him at 6 months. Even if our daughter was eating solids, why would you not ask before introducing a food to her? He didn't even try to rinse the tequila off the lime. He could have dunked it in water or something, not that that would have made much of a difference, but like, come on dude. For the rest of the night I have felt so guilty for not being the one to tell him to never do that again. For some reason I just froze and nothing would come out while my boyfriend was handling it. I'm terrible with boundaries, but I will never sit quiet again when it comes to protecting my daughter. I'm feeling mom guilt to the max. He called his mom, they're divorced, after dinner, and she started laughing and said, "Oh, a little bit of tequila isn't going to kill her, grandma put Manhattan on all your guys' gums." Then she hangs up, calls his brother, and acts like we are being unreasonable and crazy for being taken aback by this. Has anyone else went through something like this with parents-in-laws? What would you do in this situation? I am not sure whether to drop it and see if he does it again, then say something, or say something the next time I see him. TLDR, my FIL, 69M, gave my 4-month-old, 0F, a lime with tequila on it. Stories number 37. Aita for telling my MIL I wasn't with her son for citizenship. I, 25F, met my fiancé, 27M, 3 years ago. Now after a while, he proposed to me and it was literally the happiest day of my life. He met my parents a year ago and they get along really well. He does not have a good relationship with his parents at all and he has not seen them in a while. He does call them sometimes, but I have never been properly introduced to them. It was always a touchy subject for him. Now that we are getting married, there was no excuse and I had to go over to meet his parents finally and formally invite them to the wedding. The moment we arrived, his parents seemed to have an issue with me. For context, I am Singaporean and moved to the US 15 years ago. The entire time I always saw them shooting each other glances and kept calling me Chinese even though I am not. This really upset me and my fiancé was upset too, so he confronted them about it. They immediately started saying that they thought that I was only with him for his citizenship and even called me a gold digger. They said, "She is one of those Chinese girls looking for a way in." I was so offended. He was talking back to them and I just snapped and told that I did not want a US citizenship because I had a Singaporean passport, which is literally the most powerful passport in the world. I told them that they were being racist and disrespecting me and my culture and never once addressing me directly. I told them that did not want them at the wedding and basically stormed out. My fiancé did not have a problem with it and kept telling me that he was sorry for how rude they were to me. Now some of his other family members are saying that I was being really disrespectful when I thought that they were in the wrong. Maybe I shouldn't have lost my temper like that, but I don't know. Aita. Stories number 38. Aita wife put my food in the dog bowl. I get home from work and my wife has made dinner. We usually split this responsibility, though I enjoy making food. She told me in advance it was a stew. I get home after telling her I was happy she had handled food as I arrive usually around 450 to 500. She tells me that the stew she made tasted just okay, and shows me my portion. It was in our dog's bowl. I didn't even notice at first, but when I did I asked, "Is that the dog's bowl?" She said yes, and that it had been in the dishwasher. I was taken aback, and stood in the kitchen for a bit. She then offered her own bowl of stew to eat, but she had already eaten from it. I feel as though it wouldn't have been hard to quickly wash a bowl that we had, as opposed to giving me the one that our dog eats from. He eats his own feces, and is a dog. She was upset when I told her I wasn't going to eat it. She locked herself in the bedroom for hours after as well, as if I was a monster for saying I didn't want to. After, she came out and argued that the dishwasher cleans things at like 160 and it would be okay. I not only disagree with that rationale, but have been germ-averse since I was young, and she knows that. Who wants to come home to food in their dog's bowl, anyway? We have so many others that only we use. I was so confused, and then more so when she acted like I was the bad guy. I'm only making this post because she said that opinion would likely be split, if I did. Who would think that was okay? How am I for not wanting to eat from a dog bowl? Stories number 39. My 2-year-old has made up a fake woman. Not really, but after we picked my partner up from work she said, "I want new mummy, not old mummy," when she was having a bit of a welly, and kept saying about new mummy. Now, we both sort of laughed it off after the fact, but I can tell that it has upset my partner a bit. She kept asking small probing questions like, "Where did you go with daddy today?" To which our daughter answered with the stuff we actually did, like go to the shops to get pet food, played with blocks, read books, etc. Now, I'm not having an affair and nor do I ever intend to, but even if I was I damn well wouldn't bring my child along, and there is absolutely no chance I'd say, "This is your new mummy," or anything like that. I feel like the more I try and defend myself the more my partner thinks it's real. How the hell do I dig myself out of this non-existent hole? I can imagine that it doesn't help that I was dressed quite nicely today with aftershave on, but it was just the first outfit I grabbed this morning and our daughter likes to smell perfumes and stuff. I get it from her perspective, because something like that the other way around would probably have me thinking, what the fuck, too, but kids just say shit sometimes. Edit, thanks for the replies everyone. Having read through them all, she has probably got this from me just chatting to other parents at playgroup. Despite the comments about ghosts and past lives, I don't think there is anything paranormal going on here, lol. Anyway, I'm going to count myself lucky given some of the stories you guys are giving about the stuff kids make up. Stories number 40. Aita for refusing to help my coworker after she threw me under the bus. Alright, so I, 32F, work in a corporate office and my job can be pretty demanding. I've been at this company for 6 years and I'm damn good at what I do. I don't mind helping out my coworkers, but recently, I drew a hard line. Enter Sarah, 29F. She started about a year ago and at first, we got along fine. I even helped her out when she was struggling to learn some systems and workflows. But as time went on, I noticed something odd. Whenever something went right, she took full credit. But if anything went wrong, suddenly, it was my fault. A few months ago our manager called us into a meeting about a project we worked on together. There had been a mistake. Nothing catastrophic, but something that needed fixing. Before I could even open my mouth, Sarah immediately blamed me. She said, "Oh, I thought OP was handling that part. I didn't realize she missed it." Excuse me, she knew we both had equal responsibility, but instead of owning up to it, she just threw me under the bus. I stayed professional in the meeting, but after, I confronted her like, "What was that?" She just shrugged and said, "Sorry, I panicked." Blah blah blah. I told her that if she was going to pull that, she shouldn't expect me to cover for her anymore. She just laughed it off. Welp, fast forward to last week, and guess what? Sarah screwed up a report. A big one. It was something she was directly responsible for, and if it wasn't fixed ASAP, it would make her look really bad. She came to my desk, all sweet and friendly, and said, "Hey, can you help me fix this? I know you're really good with data." I looked her dead in the eye and said, "Oh, I thought you were handling that part." And then I went back to my work. She panicked. She ended up staying super late to fix it, but not before complaining to a few coworkers that I was being petty and not a team player. Some people agree with me, but a couple of coworkers, who weren't there when she threw me under the bus, said I should have helped because that's what good coworkers do. So Aita for refusing to bail her out after what she did to me, or should I have just let it go? Stories number 41. Ladies, shoot your shot. I used to be the type to wait for a guy to make the first move. But recently, I decided to switch things up, and let me tell you, it paid off. There's this guy I see at my dog park almost every morning. We always exchange small talk, and I'd caught him looking at me a few times. I knew he was single, and I was definitely attracted to him, but I had no way to find him online, and I was too nervous to straight up ask him out in person. So, I did something I never thought I'd do. I left a note on his car with my number. No long message, just a simple, "Text me, my name and number." Then I walked away and tried not to overthink it. An hour later, he texted me. We talked for a bit and out of nowhere, he asked if I wanted to hang out outside of the dog park. I suggested a chill bar I love, and he was immediately down. That night, we met up for dinner, and the chemistry was on point. No awkwardness, no weirdness, just easy conversation and obvious attraction. It never felt awkward or forced. So, ladies, let me tell you, shoot your shot. Men actually love it when women make a move. It doesn't have to be a grand gesture. It can be as simple as a note, worst case. He's not interested, and you move on. Best case. You get exactly what you want, whether that's a date, a hookup, or something more. Confidence is attractive, and honestly, guys aren't always great at picking up hints. If you see an opportunity, take it. You might be surprised at how well it turns out. Stories number 42. Aita for refusing to babysit my nephew after what my sister did to my car. So I, 26M, have a sister, 29F, who has a 4-year-old son. I love my nephew, but my sister has this bad habit of just assuming I'm always free to babysit just because I don't have kids. Last weekend she asks me last minute, again, to watch him because she and her husband wanted a date night. I told her I couldn't I already had plans my friends. She got all annoyed but said she'd figure it out. Fast forward to the next morning. I go outside to leave for work and my car is just gone. Straight up missing. I start panicking thinking it got stolen, until I check my phone and see a text from my sister. Hey, took your car last night since you wouldn't help me out. Left it in your driveway, keys in the mailbox. No big deal, like WTF. First off, she doesn't even have a spare key, so how she even got into my car. I later found out she took my keys from my apartment when she visited a few days before. Second, when I found my car, the inside was straight up disgusting. There were fast food wrappers everywhere, some kind of sticky candy melted into my passenger seat and she left it on E. I call her flipping out and she acts like I'm being dramatic. Says she was desperate and I should be more understanding. I told her she literally stole my car, trashed it, and I'm done helping her out until she pays to get it cleaned and apologizes. Now my parents are on my ass saying, family helps family, and that I should be more understanding because she's a struggling mom. My BL texted me calling me an AH because I don't get how hard it is to have kids. I feel like I'm not wrong here but now ick. Aita for refusing to babysit anymore over this. Stories number 43. Physically approaching women randomly feels like breaking out of an impenetrable prison. My dudes, I am not a big extrovert but in general I have no problem whatsoever talking to anyone, man or woman. I go on, first, dates every now and then and they pretty much always work out quite well. Pretty much in all cases, my counterpart would be pretty eager to have more of it so I'm by far not socially awkward and know my way around women, and people in general. That's that. However, when I see a woman, who I don't know, in public that piques my interest, I get stuck. I physically just can't go up and make a random chat, even when the circumstances align perfectly. Rationally, it's just a human being that you probably won't see ever again if you don't say hi chat so it's pretty outcome independent. At the same time, if it was a man, I wouldn't have some random chit-chat just for the sake of it either. It's just extremely not me, although I know for sure I'm pretty well able to do so. I just, again, physically cannot, as if I need at least a slight hint of them being open to a conversation before even being able to get close to them. What is this for self-destructive behavior? I bet it's not that unfamiliar to many of you, but to those who stepped out, how did you break this physical prison? Cheers. I know by just doing so, but that's the whole point. Stories number 44. My MIL called me and asked why I wasn't calling her anymore. Aita. My MIL has a very close relationship with my husband and she often jumps in on our conversations to defend him. E.g., one time I playfully told my husband I'd kill you if you did that and he was laughing and she jumped right in with her serious tone and started telling me, please don't kill my son, don't hit him either he's already weak and so on. I was shocked and this happens every time. One time I told her please don't come in between us when we are having a conversation and she said, it's my son and I'll defend him, and this happened often so I avoided visiting her place and stopped calling her because it triggered me and made my skin crawl. Now she complains why I don't talk to her anymore. What should I do? Update, so I talked with my husband and said, you not standing up for me is only causing me to hate your mom even more. He agreed to stand for me in the future and I inquired about his mom's call and he said that she called him and he was unable to pick her call throughout the day. So she basically called because her son wasn't picking up and she needs information on him but can't be obvious so she just went on to ask me why I wasn't calling her these days. Stories number 45. Aita for not offering to split gas on a road trip I didn't want to go on. Last weekend, I, 24F, got dragged into a spontaneous hiking trip with my friends Jason and Lily, they're a couple. We were hanging out Friday night at their place, I was already half dead from the work week and had too much wine, so I just crashed on their couch. Saturday morning, I was super hangover, like dry mouth, hoodie over eyes level. All I wanted was some water, maybe a hash brown, and no human interaction. But Jason was already up and buzzing about this hike 4 hours away. Lily was into it too. I said, very clearly, multiple times, I'm down to hang but I'm not hiking. I feel like crap. They were like, oh come on, you'll feel better once we're out there, and, it's mostly flat. I didn't push back hard enough, I guess. I wasn't trying to be a buzzkill. Next thing I know, we're in Jason's car, and I'm wedged in the back with my hood up and a bottle of Gatorade. Spoiler, I never hiked. We got there, I walked to the trailhead, and then just sat in the car with the windows cracked, reading a paperback I found in the back seat. I think it was Lily's copy of Circe. Good book though. They were gone for 3-ish hours, came back sweaty and glowing and very into themselves. I clapped politely. We drove back. Then, on the drive home, Jason says, all casual, so if y'all could Venmo me like $30 for gas, that'd be great. I hesitated and said, wait, seriously? I told him I didn't really feel comfortable paying for a trip I didn't want to go on and didn't participate in. I said it as lightly as I could, like I even added a half laugh so it didn't sound rude, but neither of them responded. It got weirdly quiet after that. Like, not just, we're tired, quiet, but stiff, polite quiet. Lily scrolled through Instagram the rest of the ride. Jason turned the music up and didn't really talk to me again until they dropped me off. I texted later that night just to say thanks for driving anyway, and Lily replied with a thumbs up emoji. Not even a NP or anything, just. I've been replaying it in my head because I do get that gas isn't free, but also, I didn't want to go, I said that, and I barely even left the car. I felt like I was being held financially hostage for a vibe I wasn't part of. Aita for not paying gas money for a trip I got peer pressured into and didn't even enjoy. Stories number 46. My BF says he deserves some of my tax refund. I received a large tax refund this year. My boyfriend says he deserves some of it. For some context, I have a child from a previous relationship whom lives with us 365 days nights a year. We have all been living together for over 2 years. I handle all the finances directly related to my kiddo, daycare, groceries, etc., and my boyfriend handles rent, electricity, stuff like that. I got my refund a few weeks ago, and have slowly been putting money into the house, living room remodel, fencing. I'm not a big spender, so have a lot of the money sitting in a HSA. Last night, my BF made a comment that since I get such a big refund for having a kid, he deserves a portion, since he's a parent too. This came out of nowhere. I thought me putting money into the house, stuff that benefits all of us, was enough. Of course, only a portion of my refund has to do directly with my kid, child tax credit. The rest has to do with other credits, I guess from overwithholding from my paychecks throughout the year. I guess I feel a bit taken aback from my boyfriend's comments last night. I didn't say much when it came up, mostly just said we should talk more about it tomorrow, and plan on having a more level conversation after work today. Just want to get some outside opinions. I've thought of sending him half of the money I got from the child credit. I do understand that he puts a ton of time, effort, and money into supporting my kiddo and myself, and want to respect those contributions. Anyone have some advice to best handle this upcoming conversation? TA. Edit for clarity, house is in his name, paid off. We pay rent for our land, HOA. We make about the same income, and we pay about the same amount each month in expenses. We have about the same expendable income. He is a very involved parent, but it has been our agreement that I handle the kiddo's expenses while my BF handles the rent. I've offered to pay a portion several times in the past, but he refuses. I also pay for a few non-child expenses, like insurance, and groceries for all of us. Stories number 47. Aita for telling my mom I don't want to be like her and refusing to let her arrange a marriage for me. I, 19F, am in my second year of college. I grew up in a very traditional, conservative family in the Bible Belt. I still don't know what I personally believe, and I think I have time to figure it out. My parents, especially my mom, have made it clear that they believe it's their responsibility to take care of me until they can hand me off to a husband. My mom has told me multiple times that I should have my kids before 25, that I should look for a man in his late 20s or 30s who is stable, and that college was a bad idea because student loans would affect my future husband's and family finances. Recently, she's been pressuring me into something like a semi-arranged marriage. She wanted to sign me up for a matchmaking site where parents set up and chaperone dates for their adult children, see if they like each other, and look at possible marriage. She's sent me multiple screenshots of men, usually 7+ years older than me, but when I told her I wasn't interested, she told me, you don't have to love him at first, a godly marriage isn't about that. You'll fall in love after marriage. That really unsettled me because I've always dreamed of falling in love and marrying someone I genuinely care about. My biggest fear is marrying someone who is abusive or who changes drastically after marriage. A few days ago, I mentioned that a girl I graduated with was already having a baby shower for her second child, which I personally found unusual for someone my age. My mom snapped at me and said she wished I was more like that. I usually ignore these comments, but this time, I kind of lost it. I told her I didn't want to be like her, she had me at 17, that I wanted a better life for myself, and that I didn't want to ruin my kids' lives by having them too young. That really hurt her, and my dad got involved, and yelled at me that I was completely out of line and shouldn't disrespect her like that. I'm back at college now, but my parents haven't spoken to me since they dropped me off, and I'm afraid they might kick me out of their house. They have threatened to before for much smaller things. I love my mom, but I feel like she failed to protect me from a lot of abuse as a young kid because she was so young, and I don't want the same future for myself. I still feel really guilty for what I said. I know my parents want what they think is best for me, and I get that they just want me to be happy. A lot of parents have clear plans for their kids' futures. But I also don't want to compromise on something this important. I don't want to lose my parents though. Ada, for what I said. Did I go too far? Should I just let her put me on the matchmaking site to fix everything? Update, I just wanted to say thank you all so much for the support, it helped me put a lot of this into perspective. Some people have been asking if my own mom went through this, and the thing is that, no. My mom didn't grow up with these beliefs, rather she lived a pretty normal lifestyle in her 20s. These more radical sentiments didn't start showing up until she married my stepfather a few years ago, which I guess is why I haven't pushed back so much. Also, they weren't super supportive of college, but I worked to get enough scholarships to cover the costs and they didn't bother me that much. I do have a job, I've been financially independent from my family since I was 16, and I have always planned on distancing myself from my family once I had the money and chance to get a place of my own, but I don't live in a big city or walkable area, and they kept me from learning how to drive until very recently. Compared to my 16-year-old brother who already has a license, I've been studying and learning on my own terms too. I am very aware of the danger of the ideas she is presenting. I wasn't raised like this, which is why I find it so unusual. I have a lot of younger siblings that I do very much still want in my life, so despite my parents projecting a lot of their shocking ideas on me, I tend to bear it for their sake. I want to be there to protect them and give them a chance to have someone to talk to. I know my parents wouldn't let me around if they suspected I had such different values than them. I truly think this is just a phase that my mother is using to grieve some lost version of herself. She's always needed a man in her life, I think it is a source of comfort for her, so I don't think she understands that I am not the same. I want to say, thank you so much for your support and kindness, and I do promise that I am in no danger. They would never force me into any decisions, and in any case, I have fought for myself before. The worst they would do is put me out, and I've had a plan for that for years. I did apologize for hurting her feelings through text, she hasn't said anything yet. I think I was just freaked out because I've never defied them in any way before. Thank you so much for listening. Update, I did edit my original post a lot before posting an update, so you may want to check it out if you feel you're missing context. I ended up talking on the phone to my mom. She still hadn't answered my text, so I called her and said that I was sorry for hurting her feelings and that I loved her and appreciated everything she's done for me as a mother, but that I was tired of her pressuring me to marry. I listed out the reasons I didn't want to look for a husband, like that I am not mature enough, I want to finish school, and I'm just not interested in a relationship. She tried to argue my points, but I continued to explain that I know she only wants me to be happy, and that she doesn't want me to be alone, but that if I marry someone I want it to be a person I truly trust and care about, and that I am okay if it takes forever to meet them or even if it never happens. That last part seemed to be a mistake though, as she started questioning me. Why would I not want to get married? Don't you know that is what you were designed for? You can't have children outside of marriage, she went on for a while. I was really shocked at what she was saying. It might not be clear in my previous post, but despite my generally conservative upbringing I still have pretty open values. These things my mom has been saying is a recent development. She did not grow up with these beliefs either, in fact my grandparents aren't religious at all. Anyways, I made another mistake of mentioning that I might not even want kids. I'm usually much more controlled in the way I communicate with my parents. They have a knack for misunderstanding me, but I was emotional and it came out. She latched on to that and began lecturing me on how I shouldn't close my womb and some other freaky stuff I've never heard her talk about, like how she's terrified I'm going to be brainwashed and that she wants me to marry soon because she knows the temptation of waiting for marriage is difficult, and that she's trying to protect me from ruining myself. Ugh, at this point I just let her talk. When she asked if I understood, I told her I did and that I would take all of that into consideration. She seemed satisfied. Anyways, I just wanted to update you guys that things are much worse than I thought. It's pretty cemented that I am eventually going to leave my family. I am just scared. I have siblings that are over 10 years younger than me, and if I leave, what am I leaving for them? Will rules tighten if I leave on bad terms? I think this will be a slow process. Thank you all so much for your support, and helping me put into perspective how dangerous these ideas are. It really was all so sudden. Stories number 48. What do I do about unwanted pregnancy when it's too late to abort? I just found out I'm pregnant. Close to my 3rd trimester. Only found out because I went in for stomach cramps. I already have a 2-year-old and my pregnancy with her was honestly horrible and I had many symptoms. Didn't feel a single thing with this one and I've been spotting now and then, so I thought I was just having a light period. I've been smoking and from time to time drinking as well as vaping this whole time. I do not want it. I feel no attachment and I haven't told my partner. Mainly because we only had sex one time when we were both kinda tipsy and that's it, guessing that's all it took. We have not had any of it after that, which has been about 6 months. We don't kiss or hold hands and neither of us try to want to, we're both aware we're only together for our toddler. We literally do not love or even like each other. We just coexist together. I also can't really afford another kid and I simply just don't want it. I would have aborted if I knew sooner. Now I'm terrified and it's too late for an abortion. I have no idea what to do or how to hide it from my everyone. I don't know how to place this for adoption or what the heck comes after I give birth. Any advice? I'm in the state of Pennsylvania. Stories number 49. My F30, BF, 27M, keeps changing my home I owned prior to the relationship. Am I overreacting? I won't make this super long. I have been with my BF, 27M, for about 4 months. He never really officially moved in but he does basically life here. He keeps changing my home a lot though. I owned it previous to our relationship and he doesn't help me pay any bills but he does continuously change things. This final straw was my kitchen. I can't handle it. I tried to bring it up but I am apparently wrong and he is just trying to help. I don't think the changes are helpful. I cook the majority of the time. It's my kitchen and home but if I bring it up, he feels unwanted. I blew up over utensils. I went to find a spoon and I can't find anything when I am home alone. Is it an overreaction to be so defensive of my home and my relationship? I feel like it's just constant judgment on my home. I am just looking to see if this is normal. I've never lived with a boyfriend before so this is a first for me. I don't know what else to put so I will answer questions if needed. Update: talk did not go over well and all of our language came up. Keep in mind my home was well stocked and established before he came around. You guys are right. I will probably be contacting a lawyer to make sure I am in the clear. Stories number 50. Aita for not apologizing for making my half-sister cry. My half-sister is 11 and I'm 15. My parents divorced when I was really young and my dad got my half-sister's mom pregnant a while after. They didn't get together for real until my half-sister was 3 and then my mom died so I went to live with the 3 of them and my dad had more kids with my half-sister's mom. I don't know why but 2 or 3 years ago my half-sister started telling me I was dumb and stupid and her mom was my mom and it was weird for me to talk about someone else being my mom. I told my dad and he went and talked to her but it didn't help. She got worse. She said my mom was just some dead woman and her mom was being my mom. I told my dad more times and he talked to her more times but it didn't help. So last week she said the same stuff again and I told her I have a mom and she died but she's my real mom, not hers. She said she isn't my real mom because she didn't die before I was an adult and that made her mom my mom and she called me a dumbass for not understanding that it works that way. So I told her that if she died before I turn 18 she's not my real sister anymore and I'll remember that so I don't call her that anymore. She started crying and her mom heard and asked what had happened. She told her what I said and her mom told me I didn't need to be a jerk and she's only 11. I said she said my mom wasn't my real mom because she died before I was 18 so I'm just making sure she knows the same will be true if she dies. When my dad got home he talked to us both and then he asked me to apologize and to understand why I was wrong. He said she's younger than me and I really hurt her feelings. I said I didn't care about her feelings since she doesn't care about mine. He told me she still has more learning to do and if I don't apologize this will always be between us even when she does learn. I didn't apologize and my dad's disappointed but said he accepted my stance. My half-sibling's mom though? She's saying I need to be grounded for not apologizing and for not caring that I hurt my half-sister. Stories number 51. Caught my boyfriend of 5 years cheating after he died. Hello, I am a 33-year-old female. I am going to make this as short as I possibly can. I met my partner boyfriend at the beginning 2017. We started dating in October 2017. In 2019 we found out he had cancer. It was truly devastating and heartbreaking for both of us. Fast forward to mid-2024, he passed away. I was incredibly heartbroken, crushed, depressed, and even had suicidal thoughts. A week before his funeral, I found out he was cheating on me throughout our entire relationship. Honestly, I am not sure what hurt the most, his passing, or me finding out about this. It's been almost a year from his passing, and I honestly don't even know how to feel or grieve him properly. Some days I hate him and other days, I miss him a lot. I'm just very confused. I'm heartbroken, crushed, just numb. Ada, for some days not really caring about his passing or if he's here or not. Ick. Thank you to everyone for the positive messages. I am starting therapy next week, so I am definitely looking forward to that. I just wanted to share this part of my life and get others' input, not sure if that makes sense. My family and close friends have definitely been a big help and extremely supportive. For clarity, he was cheating our entire relationship, since we met, during the time we found out about his cancer, and during cancer as well. He never told me anything, and I just never thought he would do anything like that to me. Especially, after everything we went through. We would talk marriage, starting a family, growing old together, etc. I found out a week before his funeral while cleaning his apartment out with his family. He had 2 phones hidden in a cabinet in his closet. His brother asked if I knew whose phones those were and asked if I wanted to keep them. I didn't think any of it because he worked in tech, and he would use a lot of phones at work. One night I decided to charge both of them to see if they still worked, and boy did they did. I found millions of messages, pictures, and videos, anything you can imagine. I started adding pieces and dates together. He went on dates, traveled with these women, tell them everything a woman wants to hear. I was and still am disgusted till this day. Fast forward to today, I am doing the best I can. I am focusing on work, my family, my friends, and my personal life. I would be lying if I told you I don't miss him. I think about him 24/7. We were together for 7 years and it stings really badly. I honestly regret charging those 2 phones, but at the same time I'm glad I did. I haven't visited him at the cemetery for almost 2 months. I feel bad, but I also don't. Grief comes in waves. I wish I could have one last conversation with him. I have to give myself closure and it sucks. Stories number 52. My truck was hit by a driver and the towing company sold my car before I was able to do anything. My truck was hit by a company's vehicle and was badly damaged along with several other cars. The police had given a report and the driver of the company vehicle was clearly at fault. The Dallas police had a towing company tow my truck which still had most of my belongings in it. It took roughly a month for the police to finally contact me about the incident and I was able to figure out which company towed my truck. I called the company and they told me that they already auctioned and sold my truck and all of my belongings in it despite knowing where the truck came from. They're telling me that they sent me letters in the mail yet I haven't received a single one. My address has not changed for years and I can verify not a single letter was sent to my house. Can I sue them for what they did? Stories number 53. Aita for telling my roommate to stop keeping her hair stuff in the kitchen drawer. I, 28F, live with my roommate Mel, 29F. We've lived together for almost a year and overall it's been fine. Different work schedules, different lifestyles, but nothing unmanageable. I work nights at a hospital, she does freelance design stuff from home. The issue is, the kitchen. Specifically, this one drawer by the sink. At some point, Mel started keeping her hair stuff in there, brush, clips, dry shampoo, one of those wide paddle brushes that somehow always has a strand or 2 of hair stuck in it. It's not gross, but it's weird, right? A hairbrush next to the dish towels. At first I ignored it. Like, whatever, maybe she just set it there temporarily. But it's been months. I finally said something last week when I went to grab a bottle opener and pulled out a hair tie instead. I made a kind of dumb joke, like, did your scalp move into the silverware drawer, and she laughed. I followed up with a, hey, seriously though, could you keep that stuff in the bathroom, and she didn't really say anything back. Next day, drawers still got the brush in it. I put it on the bathroom sink. That night she texts me, I was at work Mel, please don't move my things around. That drawer's where I get ready in the morning because the light's better. Me, I get that, but it's still the kitchen. It kinda squeaks me out when I'm eating toast next to hair product. Mel, K, so yeah. Things have been weird since. She still uses the drawer but moved the brush. Now it's just like, hair ties and her little bag of bobby pins. And I know this is petty, but she also unplugged the coffee maker I always leave on. Not sure if it's connected but it feels connected. I get that she's used to her routine. I also get skeeved out seeing personal grooming stuff where food lives. But now I'm second guessing, like, did I make it a bigger deal than it was? Aita for asking her to keep her hair stuff out of the kitchen drawer. Stories number 54. Dating after age 50 is a freaking cesspit. Edit because some of you think I'm a horrible person. My husband had ALS and myasthenia gravis in his family. He began evaluations with a neurologist 4 days before he died of a massive heart attack. It's not nearly enough time to get conclusive results. I'm tired. I spent 2 years watching him decline and weaken and taking care of him at the expense of myself. I did most of my grieving during that time because I saw what was coming. This past year has been a time of much needed recovery. You want to judge me? I hope you never have to experience what I did. I lost my husband a year ago. We had a rocky, problematic marriage and separated for a time, then got back together just as ALS or whatever he had that started sucking the vitality out of him was barely beginning to show. He owned up to the bad actions that caused the separation and we optimistically reconciled only to find him dead one morning 2 years later. He wanted me to move on, or move forward. We'd had that talk long before he started weakening. I doubled down on my therapy and got myself into that place where I'm starting to feel confident putting myself back out there. After all, I'm not yet 60, and while I may not be young, I'm still youthful. I'm still blonde. The grace of God and a good skin cream have kept me from becoming a wrinkled hag. I still have an adventurous and curious mind, and I'm up for new experiences. Hell, I'm even thinking about getting a tattoo. And what happens? I've had no fewer than 6 men offer a day's companionship in exchange for certain activities their wives won't allow due to religious beliefs and personal preference. 3 others ghosted after the first date. I've politely turned down the attentions of men whose political opinions do not align with mine, only to have them bare their teeth at me and tell me that someone as fat and low value as myself should be grateful for a partner who kisses her goodnight after kissing his gun collection. And there's the visa boys. So many visa boys. I don't want to become that bitter old widow whose windows get egged, or whatever substitutes for egging these days, but I'm not dead yet. I want to live, and I don't want to do it alone in a rocking chair. Or worse, with someone I settled for. Stories number 55. Aita telling a child to fuck off. Being 6 feet 9 inches on a cruise is basically walking around as a mobile landmark. Today, a 9-year-old kid literally chased me for 40 feet through a dense crowd, sent by his parents like a little height-seeking missile. I tried to ignore it, but he kept smacking me on the back. I finally turned around, and he hit me with the classic, "How tall are you?" I just said, "Get away from me," and kept walking. I am constantly bothered, interrupted and touched by people following me in hopes of asking about my height. I know he is just a kid, but his parents told him to follow after me. Aita. Edit. I'm not sure why people think this is a fabricated story. I did not curse at the kid, I was not being literal in my title. I simply told him to get away from me because he wouldn't stop smacking my back. Stories number 56. Aita for telling my cousin she can't wear a white gown to my wedding. Hey everyone, I, 28F, recently got into a pretty awkward situation with my cousin close friend Tanya, 27F. We've been friends since middle school. She's basically my sister. We've always supported each other through everything, so I never thought we'd have an argument over something like this. I'm getting married soon, and Tanya is one of my bridesmaids. She's been super involved in planning, which I've really appreciated because I'm under much stress, but recently, she told me she wants to wear a white dress to my wedding. At first, I thought she was joking. When I realized she was serious, I reminded her that wearing white to someone else's wedding is disrespectful, and I told her how she was one of the people who helped enforce that rule at other weddings we've been to. Which I thought was weird because why is it only my wedding? She even made a huge deal about it when we went to a mutual friend's wedding last year. She got emotional and told me why it was so important to her. Tanya's first marriage was a disaster. I don't want to give much personal info, but it was rushed, her ex's family controlled everything, and she never got to have the wedding she truly wanted. She always imagined herself in a beautiful white gown, but her wedding ended up being a quick courthouse ceremony with a plain dress. She told me that wearing a white gown to my wedding would help her feel like she was finally getting to experience that always wanted to be part of a beautiful wedding, feeling special, and having that bridal moment she never got. I felt awful hearing that, but I told her if she wears white she's out of my wedding. I understand why this means so much to her. But at the same time, it's my wedding. I don't want to be a bridezilla, think I was too harsh, but I also don't want my bridesmaid showing up in a white gown. I gently told her that I love her and I understand why this is emotional for her, but my wedding day isn't the time for her to have her bridal moment, it's mine. I may have been in the wrong here when I said, "Your sad marriage is not my fault, get a grip on life and maybe grow up." She got really quiet and said she thought I, of all people, would understand. Now things feel tense between us. I think I was too harsh. The wedding hasn't happened yet, but I'm worried this is going to put a wedge between us. I don't want her to feel dismissed, but I also feel like my boundary is reasonable and I feel really bad about what I said. Tomorrow we have a family dinner, so I hope everything blows over before then. Edit. Family dinner is tonight, wish me luck. Update. I'm keeping this quick, but to sum it up, during dinner I brought it up, in hopes to talk it out, and she got upset. She also mentioned how she found my post. I don't know how she did because this is a throwaway, plus not many people saw it. I told her she's making a big deal out of this and that I'm sorry about what I said. I don't think she cared because she walked out of dinner. I feel like I ruined dinner, plus my family is spilt on whose side to take. I feel like this situation is spiraling out of control. Stories number 57. I ordered my boyfriend food. Because of the conflict in his house and family the other day, he said he didn't get anything to eat after I asked if he ate dinner, during lunch. And what about now? We're always on call during his evenings after work. We have a 6-hour time difference, we live 11,000 kilometers apart, no answer. I impulsively ordered Uber Eats for him, his usual order for KFC. I told him something is gonna be at your door in half an hour. He said it was thoughtful and oh no, you spent so much, no one's ever done that, and every other variant of that. Then he keeps bringing it up a few days later that I did that. Is it really that uncommon for guys to get something like this? I kinda just assumed it wasn't that much of a deal considering he's had more partners than me and more experience in that department, and he's genuinely a caretaker and kind soul. It's hard to believe that he didn't get something like this. Stories number 58. Aita for not allowing my ex-husband and his wife to take full custody of my kids. Hey, Reddit. I'm really hoping to get some outside perspective on a situation that's been weighing heavily on my mind, so please bear with me, this might be a bit long. There is a TLDR part at the end of this post. Backstory: I met my ex-husband, Eric, in college. Little did I know back then that he was cheating on me with a girl who lived on campus, and I was completely oblivious. We got married, had a pretty good marriage at first, and welcomed 3 kids into our lives, 13F, 8M, 5M. It wasn't until years later that my sister clued me in on Eric's infidelity when he showed up late to her wedding with a woman named Rihanna. I was shocked and felt utterly blindsided because I had no idea who Rihanna was, thinking she was just a friend of my sister's. To cut a long story short, after finding out about his cheating, which happened while I was raising our kids, I filed for divorce. We ended up with a 50-50 custody arrangement. I had the kids during the weekdays, while Eric took them Friday through Saturday, occasionally Sunday mornings. All the while, I struggled with the emotional fallout and the fact that he married Rihanna shortly after our divorce, which added more salt to the wound since they now have 2 kids together, 10 and 6, as a result of their relationship. Fast forward to now, I've remarried and recently had a daughter with my new husband, who is now just a few weeks old. Honestly, the transition has been tough. I feel like I'm juggling a lot, raising 3 kids, a newborn, and trying to forge a life after what I went through with Eric. My family, with the exception of my mom and sister, have always sided with Eric, praising him for being the good father while conveniently forgetting he cheated on me and left me to handle everything on my own. This past weekend, my kids came back from Eric's place, and they were expressing annoyance about their baby sister crying and how I asked them to help out occasionally. I asked them to do simple things like watch her while I run to the bathroom, make a small bottle now and then, or give her a pacifier. Just typical big sibling duties, nothing that should be too overwhelming. However, my 8 and 5-year-old were complaining a bit too much for my liking. Things escalated when Eric and Rihanna suggested that they should take full custody of the kids, claiming that the new baby was changing family dynamics and affecting my kids' academic progress. I totally understand that having a newborn can be an adjustment, but I think asking them to pitch in here and there is not prettifying them. I just want to involve them so they don't feel neglected or uncared for, which I believe can be common for kids in blended families. I had a talk with my kids about it, and they told me they were just joking around and actually enjoyed helping. I was firm with them about how it's not funny to joke about such serious things, especially with their dad and stepmom, who, let's be real, will do anything to get back at me for the divorce. Things took a turn when Rihanna texted me saying she wanted what's best for the kids and that the newborn would negatively impact their lives. I've seriously had enough, so I ignored her message and blocked her. But then she had the audacity to text my oldest daughter, claiming that I didn't care about their happiness, which is just flat out untrue. My husband and my mom have been supportive, telling me that Eric and Rihanna are overreacting, and my sister has been a rock, advising me to just ignore them. Now Eric is trying to push for this full custody arrangement again, and I'm at a crossroads. His side of the family insists I should bow out for the well-being of the kids and that I'm as bad a mother as I was a wife. I really want to know, Aita for not allowing this. Am I being unreasonable in wanting to keep my family dynamic as it is? TLDR Aita for not allowing my husband and his ex-wife to take full custody of my kids. I found out my ex-husband Eric's infidelity during my marriage and divorced him. We share 3 kids, 13F, 8M, 5M, with a 50-50 custody arrangement, while Eric has remarried and has 2 kids with his new wife, Rihanna. I recently had a baby with my new husband, causing some adjustment for the kids. Eric and Rihanna suggested taking full custody of my kids, claiming the newborn is negatively impacting the kids' lives. I believe involving the older kids in baby duties is reasonable, but Eric and Rihanna view it as prettifying. I blocked Rihanna after receiving unwelcome messages about the kids' happiness. Family pressure is mounting on me to allow the custody change, leading me to question if I am being unreasonable in wanting to maintain my current family dynamic. Stories number 59. Aita for telling my ex to stop calling me in the middle of the night for non-emergencies with the baby. I, 19M, have a 10-month-old son with my ex-girlfriend, 20F. We broke up shortly after our son was born but have been trying to co-parent as best as we can. I have my son for 3 days out of the week, while my ex has him the rest of the time because I work full-time to support myself and pay child support. The issue is, my ex has been calling me almost every night, claiming there's some sort of emergency with the baby. At first, I would answer immediately and even drive over to her place if she sounded panicked. But after a few weeks, I started noticing a pattern. None of these emergencies were actually serious. One time she called me at 2 a.m. because the baby was crying, and she didn't know what to do. Another time, it was because she ran out of formula, even though I had bought her a bulk supply the week before. Most recently, she called me because he had a mild fever, but when I suggested she give him infant Tylenol, she said she didn't have any and expected me to bring some over immediately. I'm exhausted. I wake up at 4 in the morning every day after the last call. I told her she needed to stop calling me in the middle of the night unless it's a real emergency. I said if she felt overwhelmed, she could call her mom or take him to the doctor, but she couldn't keep relying on me to drop everything. She blew up at me, saying I was being selfish and that as the father, I should always be there for our son. She accused me of not caring about her struggles as a single mom and claimed I was making her feel unsupported. I told her I would always be there for our son in a genuine emergency, but she needs to learn how to handle the day-to-day stuff on her own. Now she's been cold and distant, and some mutual friends think I was out of line for telling her to stop calling, saying I don't understand how hard it is to raise a baby full-time. So, AITA for setting this boundary. Stories number 60. AIO to my boyfriend pissing on the toilet seat. I'm just gonna make this short and sweet. One day about 2 months ago I asked my boyfriend, do you notice when you dribble pee on the toilet seat? And he said yes. I asked him politely to start cleaning it up. It happened some more and I asked him again. Would you please clean up the pee on the toilet seat, or lift the seat before you go? He said, yeah, I just forget sometimes. Last night I went to go sit down and there were like 5 drops of dried up crusty piss on the toilet seat. I'm about to go insane. It's disgusting and I don't like having to clean up after a grown man like this. I also feel like bathing in bleach every time I miss it and sit down in it. I seriously cannot stand it. Either lift the toilet seat or clean it up. Am I overreacting to this? Or is it just unhygienic and gross? Stories number 61. How do you deal with the never-ending list of rules that men are expected to obey? So last night I'm on a date and it's going pretty well and at some point we hear a car drive by kind of fast, just accelerating, which is common around here. And the girl looks over at me and says, you know the rule, right? The man is always supposed to walk on the side closer to the street. Just in the long shot that a car comes careening off the road into the sidewalk, it will just kill you. Of course, this is just in addition to the usually massive list of arbitrary rules that women have created for us gentlemen. Where do you draw the line? There is really no limit to the amount of rules that can be created. Who wants to be walking around spending their energy worrying about if they're on the right side of the street 24/7? This just seems like controlling narcissistic behavior to me that has become more and more ingrained in this society.